what I am excited about is CactusCon. Not CactusCon because it's already passed, but how many pictures of me did you get on your phone before you finally said yes to showing up?
That's a really interesting question. So too many. And I guess this is probably a good spot to insert, just
Context?
off my chest here. I haven't watched an episode yet.
Oh.
So I've been sent many clips. I've been mentioned your name many times. And I'm like, who the hell is this Fern guy? All this kind of stuff.
Yes.
Usually I'll trust a few folks like Manrod or Eccles or somebody to be like, no, you need to talk. So I watched a few clips. And I'm like, yep, sounds good. And as you know, we never really connected, right? But as we started getting a little more serious, I was, okay, do I research or do I just go in and let you have me? So here it is. It's just me.
Just you.
I have no expectations.
So no research, no expectations. How long would you drive?
Just a little over an hour, 61 miles. Yeah.
So I want to make sure it's worth that drive.
Yeah.
Worth the drive in, worth the drive back.
Yes.
Okay. Because there was a time where I was in Vegas and Mike was there. We're at the cigar bar.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, man, you ever get Shuler to show up? I'm like, sure didn't. So I said, I think I told him, I was like, hey, we should take a picture and send it to him. So you got that picture.
I got that picture. Manrod sent me pictures.
Is it weird to get a picture of a stranger?
It is.
It is.
But it happens more than you think. And you're just like, hey, I'm hanging out with so-and-so. You're like, who? So you got to go to LinkedIn. You got to do
the research.
Figure it out. Yeah.
So you're essentially the stone and I'm the drop of water. Eventually just enough times and you were just like, okay.
I'm stubborn, right? You got to really convince me to come out of my hole. And congrats to you. You did it finally.
So have you ever done a podcast before?
Nope.
Okay. How long? I mean, I could guess because I kind of did a little research, but at least 20 years.
At least. That's a good number.
So in 20 years, never done a podcast. Is it safe to say you've gotten more pictures of me on your phone randomly from other people in tech than anyone else in your life?
Hey, wow. That's creepy. Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to make it as creepy as possible.
Yeah, perfect.
For the listeners out there, it keeps them on the edge of their seat.
They're like, wait a minute, what did I tune into?
So more pictures of a random person. I don't know if there's much else. I think that's
your name
enough.
gets brought up over and over and over. I'll add to your list.
Okay. So I'm not in these
that I go to.
Yeah.
Local events, not even so local events where you're just like, oh yeah, I was talking to Paul at an event the other night and he's like, oh, I just got done talking to Fern and I did the radio announcer voice. And I'm like, oh man, that's great. He actually prepared me because he was like, I got a little lost. It's a really weird place to go to a podcast.
Yeah. So Gina was here last Friday. And she pulled up and she was like, yeah, I had to make sure, I sent this address to a few people because, it was like weird. It's like, it's just right behind American Furniture Warehouse. Like if anyone cares to show up, like it's just back row, you just go in and turn. So try to
go get a couch.
Yeah. Get a couch on your way home. So I don't think it's too bad, but for you, it's pretty far. But you've had so many people kind of tell you about it. You've had a bunch of people text you about it. Haven't seen an episode, so we're kind of just like setting the stage for people on what they could expect. What else is there? I think that's pretty much it. That's a pretty good cocktail to show up randomly.
I think so. And it did take our somewhat abbreviated conversation, but our time together at CactusCon locked it in for me. I'm like,
oh, really?
Okay, is
that what it was?
I guess I needed that personal connection. I needed some face-to-face time with you to be like, okay, this dude's real. He's not gonna like murder me in some warehouse, and
you're not gonna be found in an ice bath without a liver.
Exactly. I know where the ice is though.
I've got a few cubes in there. I got a cube in my cup right here with the Angel's Envy. Let me take a sip here.
Is this the first sip?
It's the second. It's kind of watered down, but actually it's not as tangy or as like kicking me in the teeth as it was originally. I kind of like this.
Perfect.
So we don't know what I'm going to say today, but we've got at least a double in there.
I think so.
Today's Monday, right? It is.
Yep.
It's Monday, and we got the double started before 5:00. So yeah, I figured I'd ask those questions because just to understand kind of context for other people, it's really hard to chase people down, right? It's like, nah,
Podcast, right?
just for a podcast fee. like,
You're not even trying to sell them something. You're just like, hey, come on, talk to me.
No, yeah, exactly. That's probably what's weird is they're like, why does this person want to talk to me versus like everyone else wants to sell me something? I could sell you stuff, right? But that's not the point. And I've made it, we'll say like my mission to not talk about work with people, especially when they're sitting in the chair or even after the chair, unless they ask me about it. Because just like you had all these people tell you, hey, you should show up for the podcast. You're hanging with Fern. He's a cool guy. He's got the craziest beard. Like, that thing is sick.
That's exactly what's said. Yeah.
Yeah, right? He shined his shoes. They're like super white today. They won't say that if there was a pitch or if it was like a sales thing, right? And I think eventually the word would get around. I was like, oh yeah, you show up, he's just going to sell you some stuff or try to, right? So that's why I've stayed away from him. And I kind of really want to talk to people that aren't in the commercial space because we don't do any government work or SLED or public sector. So it's like if those people show up, there's zero possibility of anything happening, right? It's like nothing ever will happen. But it's really hard to get those people to show up.
Sure. So
I've just made sure that like now when people do show up, it's not bait and switch.
I like it.
Right.
Good format.
So that's the goal. But at CactusCon, you ran a very interesting topic, one that's near and dear to my heart.
Wow.
It's the core of my being. And what I find interesting is you probably know more about the world of sales than most people know.
I would argue that I don't know enough.
You don't know enough. Okay. But you know enough because you've been around, you've worked with some people that maybe share some stuff, right? And those people might be on the SE side.
Yep.
Less sales. So you kind of get optics of an SE, right? And I think my favorite part about you coming in is you have those optics, that experience, but you don't have what I have, right? So I thought, why not start with some interesting things that either you don't understand, maybe confuse you a little bit about the world of sales, or just something in general that you've always wondered about.
Yeah.
Like the top 3 things that come to mind. And I'll just give you the honest world feedback because I think there's a lot that people don't understand about the world of sales. Because one, nobody likes salespeople, so they don't ever want to get a sales job. Usually commission-based or highly incentivized through commissions. And most people don't in the engineering or security engineering or any role don't like the potential instability of that. So they don't do it. That's just my world.
Yeah.
It's kind of all I know.
That's great.
So
glad you know it.
So I guess with that, so my first question to you is like, rattle off a few things where you're like, man, I really wish I knew how this worked. And I'll do my best to answer. I mean, maybe there's some things I can't say legally. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we can go through it.
So I think there's interesting bits, right? So we'll start with this. It was an epiphany for me to figure out that a renewal sale is not the same as a one sale.
Oh, man.
Like that was an epiphany. It happened a while ago, but I was just like very maybe naively saying like, oh, my sales guy loves me. I'm renewing everything through him. And really it just wasn't maybe connecting the dots. So talk about like what happens on a renewal cycle.
Okay. So there's 2 sides to it.
Yeah.
The first side is there is a vendor, typically like a VAR in the middle, right? So like the big resellers. We don't have to name them because there's no press.
Plenty.
Don't give them press, right? They all exist. And then there's a manufacturer. So what you'll typically find is you will be contacted by, well, a random person that you don't even know who they are because they're the renewals rep.
Yep.
They show up once every year or once every 3 years. And usually the emails get lost in spam. And what ends up happening is the new rep, like the coverage rep, the main AE or whatever they are, whatever they're designated, will say, hey, like, we have a renewal coming up. Did you get the email from Bob? So you go looking for Bob at abc.com and you find it and you're like, oh, okay, cool. So the renewal is due in 120 days. We have to get the quote. Cool. What's the quote? And you'll get the quote. And so one thing most people don't know about renewals is they're never really discounted. And the reason is because they're typically support, right? If you buy a product and you have support, like some of the older models, like you buy hardware, have support, you'll notice the discount on the hardware is always crazy,
Right.
but the support is usually minimal. So depending on when you first bought it, if there was some funky math that was ever done, sometimes I had it happen one time ago where customer, because of how they wrote it off on their, let's not say the taxes, but on their financials, their support needed to be a certain price, a certain dollar amount per year to qualify for extending it multiple years. And I don't want to say the number because if I say the number, then some people at that company might know who I'm talking about. But it was a number, and we'll just say it was 100,000. It was 100,000. So if it was over 100,000, they could technically break it out into multi-year contracts, even if it was a single year. So on their budget cycles, they could break up something for 100,000 over 3 years and only use 30,000 of their budget for that year and extend it to the next two, and essentially scoop up those other 66,000 or whatever it would be on years 2 and 3 on the next budget cycle internally. So they would always say, hey, like, can you like bump up this number so that way we can get this number to meet it, qualify. So they would essentially kind of game the system. And maybe not necessarily game, but work within the bounds of the rules and get it to where they could get more on the service cost versus the hardware.
Yeah.
And then when it came to renew, the renewal cost was way less because we bumped it up. You know, if it would say it was 50 and we doubled it to 100, well, now they were able to extend it for 3 years, but when they went to go renew it, it might have been like 65. And the team is like, well, why is this so less? I'm like, why is it so much less? And it's like, that was a weird conversation. But, you know, it's like, well, then just do it for another 3 years. So that's part of it. But there's always the renewal side and then there's always the net new. And what most people don't realize is typically the renewals rep is fighting to get you to renew because that's how they get paid. They have a certain number of contract values that they're responsible for. We'll say some $1 million a year. And there's 10 customers buying for 100,000. So if everyone renews for 100,000, that person hits their number, they keep their job, everyone's happy. And if that was the world if that was where it ended, great, everyone's happy. Then enters in the account executive, right, on the manufacturer side. Typically, and I'll say typically because some places it doesn't matter, but typically they're not compensated on the renewal. And in fact, they're actually incentivized to sell net new, right? Because when you think of a publicly traded company, in most cases they are, how do they show value to their shareholders? Growth, more purchase, right? We don't need a renewal, right? And this is a lot of times why you see a lot of companies move to subscription-based licensing, predictive modeling of the purchase, but then also for the shareholders, right? Adobe was like one of the first ones to do it like 7 or 8 years ago with their like creative team suite. And then you slowly see a lot of people start doing it. And you notice that now a lot of vendors are moving people from traditional licensing, which is perpetual plus support, to just 100% subscription. And there's some that even say, hey, if you don't renew it at this point, it's done.
Right.
Like, we're just going to auto convert you. And the price is the price. And, you know, a lot of that has to do with like Wall Street. But the other side of it is like the new reps are compensated on the upsell, cross sale, or just any sort of sale that's not just business as usual.
Right.
Yeah. So what you'll find a lot of times is you get a lot of better pricing when renewals come around because on one hand, the person that's incentivized to sell it is going to find a way to get your cost either the same or less than the renewal because they know you've got, say, 100,000 budgeted for this renewal.
Right.
If they can get you for 90 and get you more, whether or not you need it, it doesn't matter. I can get you on the new stuff. We get everything that you had before plus a little bit more. Who's going to say no to more for less?
We love it.
Right? And then you'll find that most of the time, like we'll say 80% of the time, you don't actually deploy this stuff. Yep. You just keep 20% of it, right?
Just sitting around.
And then 5 years later, you've got a lot of shelfware, or you find yourself in like the perfect like executive early Christmas where you need to buy like a new feature or like a new, like say you've defined some sort of attack surface and you're like, how do we mitigate that? Oh, we need this tool. Oh, we actually have that with these guys. We don't even use it. We get it for free, right?
Look at how ahead of the game.
We built this in like 3 years ago. We got it now. That happens too. But in most cases, it's a lot of times like this internal battle at the manufacturer where it's like the renewal person wants to get the renewal and do whatever they can to get that to you. But they're kind of like hamstrung on what they can actually discount.
Right.
Because a lot of it's like service-based support. And you can't necessarily discount one of the most profitable lines in the resale world, which is people, right? The hourly rate.
Right.
Or like the service contract rate. And then on the product side, they just do whatever they want.
Right.
Right? Because that's where all the money is. It's where they bake it in. So a lot of times you'll see this struggle between the two. Usually the AE wins. And I've never been on the manufacturer side to say definitively how that washes out. But I have heard stories where the renewals person gets some sort of credit based on the purchase as a result of the upgrade. So it's not like they get kicked to the curb,
right,
or like get sidelined and lose everything. They still get taken care of. It's probably more so viewed as a upsell versus a non-renewal.
So is the renewal then a good time to pick up those new bits? So if you're renewing, if I just want the same thing, is that versus, hey, I want the new thing or this new thing.
Yeah.
Is that a bad time to include those requests?
So it depends, right? And that's what every typical answer is. Mm-hmm. It depends on the scenario. What I would say is there's some key factors that go into how it depends. So a really good example is end of quarter, end of year, end of something.
Right.
There are incentives for a manufacturer to close a deal within a certain window of time. And a lot of times that rolls up to executives, right? VPs, directors, to where if they hit their number, I have a situation for a company a while back where an area VP had like $100,000 bonus on the line if a deal closed. And I remember this night because they were having a happy hour that I was supposed to go to. And what we did is we created a quote at the office, sent it off through DocuSign for the customer to buy. And we stayed till like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And there were people on both sides waiting, right? Everyone's at this party, including everyone that I worked with and other people. And they're all having fun. And here I am with a coworker at the time. Like, hey man, we got to get this done.
The email.
Yeah.
Waiting for the...
And so, and this is an interesting story because at the point we knew that there was money on the line. So what we had done is we said, hey, we will get this done for you if you do this for us. And we knew there was a deal coming down the line for the same company or the same manufacturer, but a different customer for like $1 million. And we're like, you're going to give us X percentage on this deal if we close this deal. And I remember we got the email back from the VP right away. Approved. Keep this. Approved. Right?
Wow.
And it's like, okay. So now is game time. So then we go to the customer and say, hey, you signed this, got a really good deal. They got taken care of. But then we had this note, like a side letter that said, hey, like, we're going to get this money back.
Right.
Right. We didn't lose money on the deal, but we gave them a really good price. So it wasn't really making much. But then that turned into when that other deal came down the line, we had this piece of paper saying, hey, look what this person said. And then it turned into, oh, well, I guess we owe you money.
Go do it.
Right. I guess we got to discount it. Right.
See, these are more games though, Fern, more games. Like, how do you make it simpler? How do you make it easier to just pick up what you need? Like,
well, so that's the thing is like, it's not necessarily bad for you to be part of a game that you're not aware of.
And I think, well, that's a very interesting point, right? Because it's like when those games are happening that I don't know about, and there's games that I know, like which ones are useful to know about?
So the best games for you to be a part of are the ones where you win regardless of understanding the rules, right? Yeah. And like, so in this situation where you said, what's the best time? Depends on who's involved. Because a lot of times if you have a top end seller, end of quarter deals don't ever happen.
Right.
End of year deals, they could care less, because you know what? They've already made their number. They've made as much money as possible. Sure, they'd love to get more money, but they'd also like to start off the next year with a bank,
Right.
right? Because they're going to get gold on what they sold the prior year. So if it's a really good rep, they'll just be like, you know what? Like, you either do it or you don't.
Are prices really going up at the end of the quarter? Like,
Typically,
how drastically do those change?
So it depends. A lot of times there's a set schedule.
Yeah.
A lot of times manufacturers pre-release a schedule of when prices will go up. Like Cisco is known to do this. Like, you can go online and know when end of service life is, when end of life is, or end of sale, or all these different things, right? And they even, a lot of times with the people that work with them, they publish when pricing will go up. And a lot of times it's category specific. So it could be like networking, it could be access points. Like, there's different categories in their catalog that they say, hey, like, pricing is changing. So if you need to get SmartNet or whatever sort of support, do it within this period of time and you're good. So that's part of it. The other part is, like, it depends on who's getting paid, because if the person that's getting paid doesn't necessarily need the deal to hit their multipliers or their numbers,
Right.
they're less likely to give it to you.
So you never know. Like, I mean, like,
You
you
know-
could be working with a rep that was having a bummer year and just needs yours to make that last bit, or they could care less.
Yeah. And so, and then to stack on that, it also matters on the partner side, because a lot of times you can't buy direct. So there's two people involved now. You have the manufacturer and you have the reseller. Resellers probably care a little bit less, because money in is just money in. The more, it's like hungry hippo. The more you can get, the better, because it's just usually a flat payout percentage wise. So it's not necessarily quantified against product category. Sometimes it is, but like not all the time. And what you'll find is when these two people are working together, or, you know, working for a common goal, both of their needs are usually met. Right. So you're not only just working with one person to kind of get the deal, you also have to consider a completely different person and what their goals and incentives are. So it really does depend. And like, if the person that is on the manufacturer side is having a killer year, they're less likely to get a smoke deal. Now, the counter to that is if they're on a PIP, which means they're on some sort of performance improvement plan, which it stands for, they're not hitting their number. They need so many dollars to get to the next tier of a payout. And we're talking like a percentage increase, right? If you get to this percentage, you get this percentage more, right? Like, I'm like a sliding scale. Then yeah, by all means, you'll be able to get a better deal from that person.
So now I got to read these people. Hey man, how's your year going? Yeah,
I know.
good year. Like,
Well, a lot of times and not that you'll know, but the people on my side will know, because we talk to these people all the time.
Sure.
Like, a lot of these times people are friends. You hang out with them.
they know who got the last deal or who made the big deal, or
it's a small world.
Yeah,
for sure. And if you're not at the table with these people hanging out or talking to them or friends with them or aware of what their business is doing, you're kind of shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
So that's where it helps to have someone that's connected with the people that you work with.
Right.
Or at least a good enough relationship to say, hey, and this is where it gets really interesting, and most people don't think about this, is if your reseller happens to know how the manufacturer gets paid, right? You can essentially structure a deal to where everybody wins, where it's like, okay, and a lot of times certain models, so think of it like buckets. If you've got 5 buckets to fill, say it's $1 million bucket. There's a $200,000 bucket, there's a $300,000 bucket, and there's a $500,000 bucket. 500 is product, 300 is support or software, and the 200 is support or services. We'll call it services. So hardware, software, support, services. So what a lot of people don't realize is that if you find a way to bake in an extra bucket that wasn't there originally, there are ways that compensates the person more than it would in another bucket. So like $100,000 in a $200,000 bucket is worth more than like $200,000 in a $500,000 bucket. So if you know where these buckets exist from the manufacturer and where they're incentivized to hit a number to accelerate their pay, you essentially dip yourself into that bucket and you make it to where now that you've dipped into this bucket and it has a higher weight to it, essentially, you can discount further on the $500,000 bucket, right? So I'll give you
Too much math, man. Right?
Well, that's why there's people that do this for a living, right? So here's a really good example. I won't say who it is or the manufacturer, but there was a manufacturer that was selling hardware, right? Product used by an IT team. And they came out with this new product that no one was buying, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll just call it. It's the new thing, right? And no one really wants it because there's someone else that already does it. They might have, whatever. And on this particular deal, it was probably about $500,000, okay, of a certain product. But they offered what they called a seed unit. And this cost $50,000. Okay. So to buy this thing that no one else was buying was going to cost you $50,000. No one wants to buy it, but they have to buy this other stuff, right? So what we ended up doing was we said, hey, we're going to take that. We're going to add it to the build. We're going to zero it out. Okay. Now that we've got it for zero, you're going to bring us whole on the product side. So you're going to discount the product by another 50 so that that margin can eat up what the customer's probably going to throw away, right?
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is you're going to get paid on this and you're going to discount that because you've met this other bucket. Okay. So what ends up happening is, and depending on what this bucket is, there's multipliers to it. So if you know what those are, you can say, okay, cool, you're going to get paid double on this. So I need you to discount this 75% of that because you're still going to be whole an extra 25%, right? So you discount, instead of discounting 50,
right?
You discount 25, you get 100 in credit, but you only lose 25 essentially because you're doubling the 50. So you give me 75 off, you take an extra 25, customer gets this for free, I make an extra 25, right? You get the 25 and everyone's happy.
All your buckets are filled.
Yeah, all of them get filled. But the customer, so if you're ever on the customer side and you're looking at a bill of materials where something's $0, bet your ass someone's filling a bucket.
Right.
But if you don't know that, then to you it's like, oh, it's a freebie. Nah, it's not a freebie.
Nope.
I mean, it is, but it's really there to fill a bucket that's going to help someone else. So I like to think whenever you see something for free, everyone should ask the question, well, why is it free?
Yeah.
What bucket is it filling? And if you don't understand and the resale partner you're working with doesn't know, well, that's another problem. But a lot of times people should know.
Right.
And that's where the leverage comes into play, is because it's not about discounts. A lot of companies don't pay based on a discount, or they don't pay on profit. They pay on revenue. So some companies out there will discount 80, 90%. And the reps don't care because it's not about the profit or the overall deal. It's about the revenue.
Right.
But you got to know who those people are.
And do you find that? I think you find that earlier in maybe a product's life cycle, where it's more about maybe market share or just actually having customers buying licenses or products versus maybe later?
I know off the top of my head because I've been doing it for so long. But most of the times, like if you don't know who the people are that get paid certain ways, you don't really know how to structure. It's almost like if you don't know how a tool can be used, how do you ever fix anything? How do you ever actually build anything?
Right.
If you don't know how to use a drill, right? And if you don't know the drill has, the quick release and it has where you can do different things with it, like you can drill, or you can drill a hole, right? Or you can put on a socket and use it as a. So
now you're talking, man. Great.
So that's how that's how the thing works, is like you have to know what the tool is and how it can be used in different ways to get the outcome or build that you're looking for.
What are the key terms of that? Like what are these things called? So like, how do I know like an incentive or a spiff or a back end this or a upfront? Like what are those things what are those terms that I need to know?
Well, you'll never know.
I will never know.
No, I mean, it depends on how honest, not necessarily honest, it depends on how transparent person is that you're working with. Like for me, whenever those things were available, you use it to your advantage. right? Because that's what they're there for. So a lot of times, here's a really good example. There's a company out there in the software space, right? You gotta be very careful with what you talk about or what you say. They're in the software space. And if you happen to have a competitive install and you get a quote for that renewal and you pass it to these other people, they will discount it based on that number 40%. And then whatever you pass along to the customer is their price. So in most cases, say it's 100,000. Now I can get it for 600. Customer might get a quote for 950. Right? But the reality is the customer could get a quote for 700.
Right.
You just have to know the rules. You have to know the game. Right? But most people wouldn't say that because it kind of gives away their profit and their money.
So these are tools that you have as from the sales side to work something into a budget or work something into a package, not necessarily be incentivized to sell something. I mean, I guess they could be used both ways, right? Like you could be like, well,
yeah,
I want to make the most money, or this is how I'm going to actually sell the product.
Well, yeah, I think my approach is make the best deal possible because like I told you earlier, like I don't really I think salespeople have a bad rap.
Yeah.
Bad reputation for sure. And I think in my mind, the best way to combat that is to not fall within the criteria of what people expect. And I think a lot of times when you talk about these things openly, or you show people things, or you help them understand the world that they live in through my lens or through the optics that I have, builds a lot of trust. And the fastest way to get things done in business is through trust. Like there's no faster way to move than trusting someone else.
I would trust you before I would come here.
Yeah.
And this isn't even business. This is just the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and that's where a lot of times where people kind of question the people that they work with. I like to think of it as like, I've never looked at my wife's phone. Right. And it's not that I don't want to. I'm sure it'd probably be fun to see what she does all day or see what kind of stuff she puts online. We don't even follow each other on Facebook. Right. I don't have a problem with it.
Yep.
I don't have an Instagram. I don't use any of that stuff. I'm, coming up on boomer age. So I'm kind of on Facebook, but I don't really use it. LinkedIn is the most of what I use. And she doesn't even follow me on LinkedIn that I'm aware of. So she doesn't see our stuff. It's like, we don't there's really no point.
Right.
But a lot of times people will look through someone else's phone because they don't trust them. The way I see it is I have no reason not to trust her. So whatever she does is what she does. I believe that what she does is, in good faith or whatever the term is. And I have nothing to worry about. But there's a lot of people that aren't like that in relationships. And there's a lot more people that are like that where they don't trust the person that they're working with because of the stigma of salespeople.
Yeah, it's a slippery. We'll have to, that's a whole other podcast right there of, but relationships, but it truly is. It's down to, are you trusting and doing that? And I think that's an interesting parallel because I found myself across the years having worked with many different sales teams, whether it be, strategically to come up with okay, this is how we're going to work through a VAR now, or, inside sales teams when a product, you can go direct and do those things, but they often change. And I think a frustration point is those changes when you're like, I have built this relationship. I like these people. I trust these people.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that I don't work with them anymore. And I have no choice in it. They're off and moving someplace else.
But that's usually on the manufacturer side, right?
Usually. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't ever see on the reseller side, because typically when you have an account list on the reseller side, that's your account list. Mm-hmm. So as long as they're buying, as long as they're happy, you're going to have the same rep for 10, 15, 20 years. Yep. And that happens a lot. But on the manufacturer side, it doesn't. So here's actually an interesting topic is, have you ever noticed how sometimes the reseller keeps the manufacturer at arm's length from you specifically?
I've experienced that. I guess I would say not so much recently, but yeah, there is, I guess, and I appreciate it really, of the handling of the manufacturer on my behalf sometimes, because maybe they understand the operations a bit better than I do or have time to.
Let me tell you the real reason. You ready for the real reason?
No.
Okay. This might actually blow your mind.
Yeah.
So think of it like this. Assume that we work together, right? And you spent $1 million a year with me. And I brought in someone else that's on the manufacturer side who is very likely not to stay in that role. Okay. You purchasing from me helps me feed my family, right? Now I bring in a third party. That third party says, hey, and if I say, hey, free reign, hit up Dan whenever you want. Hey, Dan, let's go hang out. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Let's do all these things. And I am not present. That allows you to build a relationship with a third party. Now, what happens when that person leaves the manufacturer? They're either going to go to another manufacturer, or you see this a lot, and they go to the resale side.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people will travel to the manufacturer side to work with a certain number of customers. You see a lot in public sector, honestly. They'll build relationships with these people, schools, entities, states, right? And then they'll jump ship, and then they go to the manufacturer or the reseller side. And I want you to guess who they're calling first when they land at the new place.
Oh, they're full client list. They're friends that they worked with. Absolutely. I've received those calls. I'm like, I didn't know you worked here now.
Yeah. And guess what happens to the person that originally introduced you to them?
They get nothing, right?
Well, sometimes, yeah, exactly. Who do you like more? Do you like the person over there? But if it's like, if I can keep that person far enough away, I'm protecting the business that you buy through me.
Right.
Dirty.
That's dirty, man.
Does that blow your mind?
It's not good. So when will it exist that I can just get on Amazon and buy, X number of licenses and where like
it already exists. You can do that right now. You can get a custom price sheet.
Yeah.
You can go online and say, based on your commit, what you expect to pay.
So there's so many intricacies. There's all of these different components and players. And so I think what I'm learning from this and what I learned from CactusCon, and I'm glad you brought it up because CactusCon was cool. CactusCon is always cool. And with the village that we've been able to put together, Andy's spearheaded a wonderful CISO village to be able to tap into these types of topics. But it was my favorite part when some of these topics were brought up and there was a collective like, oh, or that's really, or I had no idea. So those types of epiphanies that folks were having, much like I was having when I started doing research on presentation and just across the years of interacting with those. So I hope that, folks can either watch that or come to another CactusCon and see when we do those again.
It'll be up pretty soon. I think soon. Andy has a copy that I sent him from the recording.
Right.
But there's, I think the best way that I like to describe it is, do you gamble?
No.
No. Okay. For the cameras, no. I like to think of it as like, if you were to gamble, or if you were to play a game like Monopoly, where there's real money involved, but you didn't know the rules of Monopoly, do you think you'd honestly win?
Yeah, no.
That's tech sales. That's literally tech sales for you. If the world exists around customers, right? Like with the channel. Most people don't know what the channel is, right? So they don't understand distributors, resellers, direct, tier 1, tier 2 partnerships.
Right.
No one understands the world outside of their bubble. And it's an ecosystem that's built around the customers, right? Because the customers are the ones with the money. So it's built around these people and organizations as a way to, provide value, provide some sort of business value or engineering support or whatever in exchange for money. Really is what it comes down to. And as I say, it monetizes the relationship, right? It's a way to monetize a relationship that someone has with someone else that has access to money to spend. Usually that's executives with budget, engineers with a project, purchasing teams with a quote.
Mm-hmm.
There is an exchange of dollars, right?
So it's all about the friends. It's all about knowing, building a relationship, kind of having that general understanding, working through the process, hopefully getting some insight into, what's actually happening. And obviously, from my standpoint, I've got a budget number to meet. I've got some based on general research and understanding of what a product might cost in a space. So still a mystery, man.
It is, but like, so think of it in terms of like running a business. If the CEO was doing the finance job, if they were doing the tech job, if they were doing the human resources job, would they ever really have time to be a CEO? No. So what they
Not
do,
a good one.
no, at least they probably wouldn't grow as fast as they could
Right.
if they delegated. So I like to think of like tech sales as a way of delegating something that people don't understand, don't necessarily care to understand, but want someone that's really good at it to help them do better.
Yeah.
Right? Like for taxes, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We pay some people a bunch of money to do taxes for us, and then hopefully we get money back, and hopefully we don't pay as much, right? I would never try and figure out taxes on my own, at least not now. Maybe 15 years ago I would have.
Yeah.
But now I just pay someone, and I'm happy to pay them money in exchange for the work that they do to get me my total addressable income, taxable income, as low as possible.
They're the expert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of times people look at others that are in sales as a commodity. It's just the price. Just give me a price. And it's like, yeah, that's possible. But there's also, depending on who it is, there is a level of expertise in what they're doing.
So I need then, it sounds like, so I've got this manufacturer, I've got this product that I need. Today's options are typically a VAR that you would work with. Like, just typical, like that's the thing there. I almost need something in between that. I almost need like I don't know, a procurement guy for hire. I need a broker, somebody who is interested in that world. Because, as much as I talk about it, I can honestly say I'm really not interested in it. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
Like I like security stuff. I like figuring out where I can defend things. I'm figuring out where I can fix things. So, but I need the products to do that.
Yeah.
So I need the broker. I need the person that can pay their salary by negotiating the good prices and the things. I mean, I'm just dreaming now, but like, what's that look like? Like, what's that magic person? Because, I'm hiring security people. I'm not hiring people that are going to be able to go and negotiate good contracts for me.
Now, I don't know if I'm being set up right now.
Maybe. Who's doing the interview here?
This is an interesting thing because not too many people know about the stuff that you present at CactusCon, so it typically doesn't come up, right? Sure. But I thought it was interesting because like that's kind of how we first started talking. Was I was talking to you about stuff, and you're like, "Oh man, like never knew that, never heard about that."
Yeah.
And then you asked me this question, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, you said you didn't prepare anything, you didn't look up anything, or right? You said you just showed up.
I'm here, man.
So
I was on vacation last week. I am free.
Okay. So where I'm having like this weird like,
and I love it.
The thing in my head right now is I'm trying to figure out like, are you sending me a layup or?
Well, I'll send you so, and to be honest, I didn't think about it like this. We were just talking about like some of your ideas and some of your stuff, like before we started recording.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I guess in that perspective, like there is very much, that's kind of funny. I wasn't thinking about it like that. I was just thinking more of in the bigger picture of if I could go direct to a manufacturer. I think that's what most people have thought of as the like, well, I know I need widget one. I'm going to go buy widget one from widget maker. And that's my best price that I can, or that's the best way to get that.
Biggest misconception.
And there you go. That's a misconception because of your channel conversations and those levels and all of those things. But not a lot of people know that. So
no,
so I might default to just say like, well, I need a VAR then, because this is somebody I can build a relationship with. This is somebody that I've worked with for 10, 15 years and maybe across multiple companies. They've always been there for me. I know I can call them and they help me get a better price. They help me remind me when it's a renewal. They help me work through those processes that I don't know. So I've successfully moved from that to be able to do this far. But maybe somewhere in my brain, a bunch of things were connecting of what's that other option? What's the middle ground there?
I feel like the biggest issue is in the world of tech sales is it's like the world of haves and have-nots. And what is being held is information. You either have information or you don't. And what I mean specifically is like how sales works on the back end. Like customers don't typically understand it. They just know that like, we got to get 3 quotes.
Yep.
We got to buy something. That's it. Here's my number. Can you get there? How that works, they don't really care about. Kind of like how you said earlier. So when I left my last company and I started my own, I remember thinking to myself, like, because I told you I got a phone call from a buddy and it's like, hey, we need you. Where are you working? And I'm like, I'm on my couch.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. So I spun up a business. And I remember going through this phase of like figuring out what I was going to name it. And I was thinking about this, that there's an exchange of ideas that happens. And what happens is people always need information. They need the knowledge, right? Because if they don't have that, they necessarily aren't making the best decision. So if you're just guessing blindly, you might hit a bingo, you might not. And I remember thinking like, at the end of the day, there are problems that need solutions. And how do you get the solution? You have to have information or the knowledge of the process to fix it or to come to this resolution. And that's when I, you know what? What if we were brokers of knowledge? We were acted as a broker in between these different parties with competing interests to where the outcome would be a happy outcome for everyone, right?
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then when I was like, what should I name this? Well, I was like, it should be, we're brokers of knowledge for what? For tech, right? And that's when I came up with the name, KBT, right? Knowledge Brokers of Technology. That's why I was saying, like, I feel like you're sending me a layup because you don't, I guess technically you don't know what I
really
do.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about it because you've seen the warehouse, you've seen the office. But that's when I was like,
Do I bite?
this is like an Inception type of thing. But yeah, I mean, there's just so much about the world that, like I said, it's if you were to play a game that you didn't know the rules to, can you confidently say you'd win? And most people would say no.
Yeah. That's why I don't gamble. I don't understand all the games.
Yeah, there's a lot of probability. There's a lot of stuff that goes with it. But if you knew someone that understood it way better than you, and they did it for a living, they would help you get to the outcome that you're looking for, right? And that's kind of where I see myself is like, people don't have time to care about this. It's a lot of work to understand who does what, when they do this, how they do it. But people, just much like I'm happy to pay whatever I pay for a CPA, people are happy to pay someone else to do the work and say, hey, get me to the finish line and get me what I need at a fair price. And then that's where this whole idea was born. But yeah, like I said, it's kind of a weird thing because it's just like, man, are you messing with me right now?
Yeah, no, I know, not messing. So this is where my brain goes, trying to figure these things out. So, and I can't say that, I ever come to any good conclusion either. It's just hopefully asking the right questions, learning the right bits.
Well, if you don't live in the world, you don't really understand the world, right? And much like people hire different specialists for different things, it's like you just really need someone that knows what they're doing. And if they know what they're doing, they'll get you where you need to be. Just expect that you can't get that for free.
Yeah.
Because nobody works for free. It's like if I was like, hey, I want you to go to work and do all this stuff for the next month and then not get paid for it. Like, probably wouldn't do the work. Right. And sales is the same thing. It's like if someone's going to help you get to this outcome, you kind of expect that you pay them something.
Sure.
But then purchasing gets involved, and all of a sudden it's like, who has the lowest price? And it's like they've kind of commoditized the whole process, the art, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's a topic for another day. But I don't know how many questions you asked there, but I feel like we went down.
We went down some rabbit holes. I think I got some bonus.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
So were there any other questions? Because I like to think of myself as an open book.
Okay. So here you go. I didn't prepare anything. So we talked about things we don't know about, terms, incentives, like all of that stuff. We've talked about a lot of this revolving around a relationship, like having these foundational like connections to be able to, work with people, figure them out, know that, they're not going to stab you or you're not going to like get messed up. But I guess I think about, maybe even taking a step away from just the dollars. And so I'm working to this. I swear I'm getting to a point. It's important to me that I hit my budget numbers, that I buy stuff that I can afford and continue to afford and all of those things. But it's also important for me to know that I have a product that's actually meeting my needs. Right.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes there's a disconnect between sales and maybe the product that's actually being delivered. So I guess I would ask, how knowledgeable does a salesperson, or how knowledgeable should a salesperson be when they're, showing a product?
Depends on when you would ask me. 10 years ago, I had this idea that they should know everything.
Yeah.
And I realized that's impossible, right? And much like the CPA analogy, you just need the engineers. I think at the end of the day, without the engineers, the salespeople kind of would fall.
I agree.
Like,
yeah,
you could have the best salesperson in the world, but if they can't answer a technical question that your business relies on for an answer, right?
Yep.
If they can't confidently tell you that product X will do or provide outcome Y, which is tied to some sort of business metric, there is no confidence in that person to buy from, right? So a lot of times the engineers come in, and that's where they do the heavy lifting. And hopefully most people, I'm sure, understand that. And when they go to market to buy stuff, the number is crazy. Like out of 100 people, only 5 people are in a purchasing cycle at any given time. It might even be 4%. So a lot of times, like, how you get all these random spam messages from people trying to sell you something?
Right.
You're part of the 96%. Because you're not actually looking.
Right.
What those emails are really for is to drive awareness. If you're not aware of a product that exists, well, when you are in market to buy, who do you think of first? You think of like the last person you heard from, or the last referral or recommendation that you heard from someone else, right? Well, who are they using, right? You might tap your circle and say, hey, like, what do you guys do? Oh, it's this. It's top of mind. It's most relevant, right? So all that to say is, should a salesperson know? I think they should be aware.
Yeah.
But should they understand it? Ideally. Should they be the technical expert? 100% never.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And I think I reflect on some of the, conversations that I've had in those spaces. As long as that salesperson, that lead salesperson has some passion about the product or something that can, and I guess I'm talking about manufacturer salesperson. They're like, look, I believe in this product. Like I've seen it work. I've drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like that goes a long way. But then once you peek under the hood a little bit, as long as the sales engineer can be competent and step you through it, it is interesting how often, attention is lost and the product is written off just because, so you mentioned I didn't finish this thought, but just because, they juggled or boggled the demonstration or whatnot. But you mentioned the circle. And I think that's where a lot of these really bigger decisions of even reaching out to a product, even launch, where it's like, if I have a trusted entity who's like, no, like this is the one, like you need to think about this. Most of the decision's already made. Like you're like, this person that I've worked with, been in the trenches with, or gone through previous deployments with as saying that they've used this, that's probably what I need to go get.
Yeah. And I've seen that. I've been on a few messages where people are asking, hey, what do you guys know about this? And I'm like, kind of like sitting back waiting for some answers to come in, because it's like, I can say what I want to say, but then someone jumps in and is like, oh, like, we hate that product. Someone else jumps in. Yeah, screw those guys.
Yeah.
Like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, like, I don't have any really good stories to tell you about these people, but you do you, right? Do your own thing.
Yeah.
And then someone else jumps in and like, oh yeah, we've never used it, but I've heard horrible things. And it's like, I feel like in this thread, I watched a potential sale just like kind of sprout and just get stomped right in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that makes sense. Like, these things happen. And it was actually the first time I'd been on a thread with multiple people where it was kind of like a question, and then a bunch of people were just like kicking it like it was on fire, just like stomping it out. And I don't even know what the outcome was of that. I didn't really ask for further clarification, but
You don't want to know.
I figured it was shot down. And it's that. So then that brought me into this idea of there are circles in the security world that exist.
For sure.
Right. Vegas Mike texted me.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, Dan's on his way. And I'm like, what?
I think I share too much information.
Yeah. It's like, aren't you supposed to be on vacation? And he said, yeah. He's asking about RSA. I don't even know when RSA is. So he's asking if I'm going to be there. And then he's like, Dan's on his way. I'm like,
that's very, very funny.
Was this like one of those things where you text a friend, like if you're going on a date?
Yeah.
You're like,
if I don't come back, you don't hear from me
in 3 hours. If nothing comes back, send a rescue team.
Yeah. No. So these circles, these communities. So I think there are, and this is the part of just life that I like. Like these connections to people are just, they're incredible to me. So like I'm really bad at keeping in touch with people. So I'm really bad at calling people up. I'm really bad at going out to dinner with people. I'm a hermit by nature.
Well, you live in Hermitville. Right?
It's just on the other side of the world. It's a whole other side.
60 miles.
60 miles. But like I truly do love the communities. I love the networking and all of those components. And so, but within security, it's a small world. Like there is a very small community in Phoenix that we interact regularly. We have all, I don't want to say all, but a lot of us have worked together in different formats. Some of us have grown up together. Some of us have been bosses of others. And you're just like, on one hand, it's just amazing to have that network and be able to reach out to them and be like, oh, you're the CISO over here now. So you kind of know more than I do at this point. Or, so that to me is just, it's incredible. And it's one of those resources that I use of like, well, I need the solution for this. What's out there? And you get some good answers.
Have you ever gotten answers where you steered away from a certain product?
100%.
Like, can you share that? Like, what was this? Like, what was the situation? Like, what were you trying to do? You don't have to name names of a vendor, but
we'll keep it name free. But like, we're trying to address, endpoint problem. We're trying to address encryption problems. We're trying to, keep our staff working. And this is not in any recent role, but the first story that comes to mind is when we were thinking about how do we transition from away from a large entity that provided us with endpoint protection. And it was a standard, and it was just so much of a standard that there was never any inkling of away from it. Right.
Yeah.
Just ingrained. And you're just like, oh, no. How do we do this? You find a few that are at a good price point. You find a few that really, truly would meet your need. And you reach out to your community and they're like, run away. Like we've just had a botched install of that, or we've just had or did you talk to so-and-so? Go talk to them before you actually sign the PO. So that's what you get from those communities. I don't know how to, as I started telling that story, I don't know how to tell it without names.
Well, let me see here. So I'm just going to guess and you could tell me how close I am.
No, I will not confirm. But yeah, but no, but those products are out there that are just, I don't know, like they look good on paper, but in reality, when you actually you need to talk to somebody that has put it in and experienced the pain before you get the real story about it. So,
oh man, if I were, I mean, you don't have the answer. Cylance did a really good job on marketing back in the day.
Yeah, I'm a huge Cylance fan.
Are you?
Yeah,
Even
I think you're going the other way with this.
Oh really?
Well,
wait, do you like them after they were purchased?
No, and I've been very vocal to Cylance about this, where I was an early adopter. We put it in. We were going against regulatory bodies that said that's not a real product. You can't use it. It does not meet at the point in age of when we were doing this, it was like, they don't use signatures, therefore they're not an antivirus. So therefore you can't claim having antivirus protection.
So machine learning didn't count?
Didn't count. So
interesting. Now it's all the version of it.
Now it's the bar has been raised, but they, at the point that we were looking at it, then this was in healthcare. They were like, nope, that can't be what is
interesting
claimed. So anyways, so we got it over the finish line. We made it happen. It did fantastic for us. Still love the product. When they were purchased, and I was, like I said, I was vocal to them. Like, my account team left. The people that I had been friendly with within the company and were worked on all of these projects, they're gone. There was no goodbye. Not that I need any, sentimental, but there was no transition. There was nothing. And you then all of a sudden just, it's crickets. Like, you're just
got up. Yes, the deuces. And they were gone.
Yeah. It was frustrating to, and I hate to pick on them, but I'm sure there's a dozen others just like it, but you're like, man, I was really digging this. Like, this is a really great way of thinking about this. It works really great. Like, and then that personal relationship that we've been talking about over and over, it's like, well, that's kind of gone now. So
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if people had the same experience with Symantec, if they had the same experience with VMware.
Yeah.
I think VMware would be a little bit worse for a lot of people.
So look, man, like, we've bought all of those. I've had great relationships with sales folks and sales engineers from all of those. And yeah, when there is a fundamental shift in their business or the industry starts changing and, they've got to mix things up and do things, I get it. But from my perspective as a customer sitting there, I'm like, this sucks.
Well, yeah, because it's like, you don't have, I think maybe from a security perspective, like, you're used to doing your best to understand the risk, assess it, and create this path forward, which in a lot of ways, like, consciously is a form of control, right? When you think of security, like, you think of the fact that there is some form of control on the environment. Maybe it's not 100% control, but the idea is to get it as controlled as possible, right?
Yeah, I think of it. So I think a lot of folks think of it as control. I try to not think. I think of it more as guide rails. So where,
like, the bumpers on bowling,
like bumpers on bowling, right? Like, it's exciting to be able to get the ball down the lane, but or guardrails on the freeway. Like, you're trying to steer the ship. It's hard to steer the ship, but if you can put some bounds to get the ship moving in the right direction, or keep it within a lane of risk that is appropriate,
like speed limits,
all of those things, it's like the the lane detection on my car, right? Or if
Oh, when it beeps when you start going
I
on.
drift a little, like mine will steer me back, and I'm like, no, I want to be. And I
You gotta
hate,
put the signal on, man.
yeah.
It won't let you unless you put the signal down.
The frustrating part, I'll bring this back around, but with the car, right? Like there's certain points. I mentioned my mom lives out in Wickenburg, right? Like smaller roads and narrow bits. And there's certain points where you're like, I don't want to be centered in this lane. I want to be over here because that's a big truck coming.
Yeah, yeah.
And it doesn't like that. It's like, no, 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 man, so it's, but I think of it like that. Like most of my security programs are intended to be guide rails, to be able to say, look, you can kind of move a little this way, you can kind of move a little this way, but when you get a little too far over the line, our controls are gonna kind of tap you back in.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to say that, yeah, the answer is always going to be yes within this lane.
Yeah, it's kind of like parenting.
There you go. Yeah.
It's like there are rules.
There's rules.
Gotta clean your room.
Yep. Gotta
Make your bed.
make a bed. You gotta try your hardest at school.
Feed the cats. I'm just like saying my life out loud.
Yes.
Clean up after breakfast, do
Yeah.
schoolwork. But you do all these things and then you can play Fortnite,
Yeah.
right? You
You
can
can play it as long as you want. No, you can play
Helldivers too.
Helldivers too.
Have you guys played recently or no?
Yeah. We were playing when he was traveling. It was great.
I didn't get a text, man.
Oh,
I didn't get a
you
message.
got to get on there.
Well, so I have it. I haven't installed it.
So
So
it's
I figured I'd just hang out until I got a text like, hey, load up.
load up.
Or whatever. Like, all right, I guess I got to go install it now. But I haven't installed it. And I was like,
Yeah.
I figured at some point when you guys play, I'll get a message.
We'll message you next time. It's a time suck. Let me just warn you. Just like anything else, like if you're like me,
Okay.
you're like, oh, well, level 1's not any fun. Like I gotta get up to this certain level before like I'm really, and then once you get there, you're like, well, that was pretty fun getting there, but what's next? And so
So what level are you?
I'm not saying a lot.
Okay.
No, it's like level 34. I think Mike's like 90 something now. Like,
So
but
he's
you look at these. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff. Don't you? I can't believe we're talking about video games.
it is. That's the thing is we just talk about whatever.
Yeah. No, it's fun, but let's tie this back to like product selection and stuff. Like this is my inner circle.
Mhm.
Somebody comes to me and is like, Helldivers is a pretty cool game. You're gonna like it. I'm like, I'm not really playing a lot of games right now. Like I'm doing this. They're like, you should do it.
Yeah.
So it was recommended. Of course, you go out and you buy it, you do it. Sure enough, you're right. And it's just like, man, this is fun. Like this is a good game. This is cool. So
I'm on the, well, I'm going to play something at some point.
Yeah.
So might as well buy a game. And then I'm just, where am I going to hear about these other guys playing? Because it's like, I don't want to go by myself. I saw some like gameplay and I'm like, oh, this looks pretty cool. It looks like the Mandalorian, like with a little bit of like, not Mars Attacks, but what's the movie where
Stormship Troopers.
Troopers.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this is basically what the game is, right?
It's great. Yep. All great concepts.
And then this like, I can't even think of the game where you're basically like a mech robot.
All right.
You know what I'm talking about? Kind of like Avatar, where they have the machines where people are in them. It's like, oh, this is kind of like someone took all these different things and put them together.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I lucked out. So my oldest son, he and his friends had been playing for a while. And so when it was mentioned to me, when Mike was, dude, you gotta get in on this.
I get it.
But it's kind of one of those things. It's like, has anybody ever invited you to go like do an workout, like climb a mountain, like go?
Does that look like I work out?
Like do something like that? For me, when I'm not answering that question, by the way, but when I think about that, I'm like, oh, well, I better like, go train a little, go get a little prepared. So that's how I was feeling with Helldivers, where I was like getting the kids, hey, show me how to do this. Like, give me the training, like, so I don't look like an idiot on day one.
Oh, I'm for sure going to be an idiot because I don't care enough to prepare. I just like show up to the party and say, let's go.
That's half the fun.
So level 1 noob.
Yes.
N-double-O-B or 00.
00.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I had it like a couple weeks ago, and I figured I'd get a text on a Friday night, and I was like,
Yeah,
and then it never came. And I was just like, we did something else with the kids.
it'll happen.
But if it happens, you know where to find me. Okay, so we talked about a few different things. I really like the idea of the inner circle though, because I kind of feel like the inner circle has been a part of a number of people showing up here, right? So I didn't know Vegas Mike before he came in. So here's a little fun fact. He actually came in, I think it was either a Saturday or a Sunday on my birthday. Yeah, because he was coming through town.
Yeah.
For a game. I remember his son was playing in New Mexico when he was at U of A. They were playing New Mexico, and he was headed back up to Vegas. It would have had to have been Sunday because they play at colleges on Saturdays. Mostly, right? Most of the time. Today I'm coming back. So he came through, rolled up on my birthday. My wife said, "Where are you going?" I'm like, show that Mike. We got Mike Echols coming through. Like, we got to show up.
Podcast calls.
And I told him, I was like, "Yeah, it's my birthday." He's like, "Oh man, you should have never done that." I was like, "Hey, trust me. Like, you only get one shot to have someone come through, and if it happens to be on your birthday, well, it's just an early birthday present." And then we go to CactusCon, and he comes into town, and he's at the front, and he's just like at the front door, like the walkway in,
right?
And every 5 seconds, "What's up?" Like, everyone that walks in knows him, and he's just like, everyone's getting hugs, high fives. He's with Han, just hanging out, and it's like, oh man. And then I happen to walk by with my cameras because I was going to set up for CactusCon the next day, the Sunday, or this was Friday, so this was Saturday. I was setting up for Saturday, and I've got this case right here with me. I'm just rolling around with it, and he's just like introducing me to all these people. He's like, "Yo, Fern's my man. If you need to go show up, do a podcast." And I'm like, "Mike, we spent 6 hours together, and you still haven't gotten it approved."
And it never will.
Never will. Yeah, I for the first couple of weeks, I was like, "Hey, like, what's the deal? What's the deal?"
Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, it's never happening.
Yeah.
But I kind of went into that knowing that was
put it in the can. Maybe someday he'll transition on and you can release it from the archives.
Yeah. So it'll be the lost episode.
Yeah, lost episode.
So at some point it'll come out. But I told him, I said, "Look, if you can't get it approved, like, I'm just gonna torch it and say that, we never did it.
Yeah.
But if by some miracle you can, we'll put it out." By the way, do you have to get anything approved?
I'll be all right.
Okay. I try. So
we've kept it pretty neutral.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
I try and keep it away from anything work related or current employment related.
Yeah.
Then there was a lot of times it's like, "Oh, I have to get approved." Like, for what? We're just talking about you.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about just stuff. It's kind of just like you meet up with a random stranger for coffee and you get stuck in a room with him for a couple hours. Like, what do you talk about?
Right. And there's not even coffee here.
We have a coffee machine. So I bought that for Lester. You don't know Lester?
I know Lester very well. Yeah.
Okay. So he came through and he's like, I said, "Hey, what do you want?" Same thing I told you. "Hey, like, what do you want to drink?"
Yeah.
Same thing I ask everyone. He's like, "Oh, black coffee." Oh shit, I don't have a coffee maker. So I go to Target, the one right here.
Yeah.
And I pick up this coffee maker for like $40 or $50. And it's out on one of the tables out there. So I'm brewing coffee. And as he pulls up, forget when, but it's like 5 minutes early, he pulls up, parks, and I'm walking in with a box, like a coffee maker, like all these years. So I'm like rushing to open it, take it out of the box, throw it in, fill it with water. I'm like, "Oh shit, it needs filters," right? So I do that, throw it in. And then I had bought coffee beans. So I throw them in, or the grounds, throw them in, and just turn it on and press play, right? So then he walks in and is like, "Oh, cool, we got coffee." Like, "Yeah, here you go." Never used the sense. Right? And so then I knew a lot of people in the security space like whiskey or bourbon.
Yep.
Right? I thought you liked it.
I'm not saying I don't like it.
Well, I didn't realize you weren't going to partake with me. So here I am, like, going to Costco, and I'm like, "Oh." So I'm telling Damien, I'm like, "Hey, like," so I bought the Willet, and like, "Man, we need more selection." So then I bought the Angel's Envy.
Right.
So far, I'm the only person that's had it. I'm like, man,
I'll try it before I leave.
No, there's no pressure. You don't have to. I just find it interesting that like I do all these things, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to make it like a good experience. I want people to be like, yeah, Fern's cool. Like,
Yeah.
he has a nice setup, or he's got an awesome selection of water,
Yes.
or whiskey. And
Artisan water.
I
Amazing.
tend to be the only one.
No, but you know what? Back to even just kind of talking about like the sales guys and being passionate about their product. This is your product right now. Like you're, like you tell you've got some interest and some passion in it. And I think that's what folks appreciate, right?
Yeah. You know what I find interesting though is like, I don't really. So let me ask you: have you ever done an event where you know that you're just gonna get hounded afterwards?
Hounded in a good way or a bad way?
Well, so say you go to like a conference,
Yeah.
and you know that the vendors that paid good money to be at a booth
Mm-hmm.
are expecting that email that you have to come through,
Yeah.
so that they can hit you up on the Monday that follows.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way out of that.
No, and I think, you really kind of just expect it at this point. Like, I mean, my work email is kind of burned if you look at it like.
So how do people get a hold of you?
How easy was it to get a hold of me?
Well, let me think here.
I had to talk to my friend circle. You've got to,
Yeah, so I had to reach out to a lot of different people. So I don't know if you knew this, but I went to CactusCon for the first time. Not this recent one, but the last one.
Yeah.
And I was there as a guest the last time.
I didn't even realize.
Didn't even know.
Yeah.
I was creeping on you hard.
Yeah, man.
So what you might remember is I had like a little man bun. So I was like a little ball on top of my head.
Nice.
And
I used to have one of those too. No.
Yeah, you used to. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
But I do remember it was a jacket, like a suit jacket with a hoodie underneath it.
Okay. So that outfit is under huge debate at home. Like,
why?
My wife thought I looked ridiculous. I'm like, I was cold.
So here's the thing: is my wife has one of those. So whenever I see her with it, I'm like, oh, that's like a hacker outfit.
Right.
So it's like a security guy's outfit.
Yeah.
She also wore something the other day where I told her she looked like she came off of Skid Row.
Oh, well.
She didn't like that, but it wasn't the same. It was a trench, like a long trench coat with a hoodie underneath it. So I think your wife might be onto something.
Yeah.
Where it's
usually
if the length goes below your thigh, probably not the look.
Probably not a good look. So what do you think? It was memorable, huh? Like, man, or
well, I remember it because I remember I was actually more interested in like, so is he wearing two outfits or is he wearing one that's sewn together? And I think it's the latter. Because my wife has one where it looks like two, but they're sewn together to be one piece.
That's funny.
So what do you have?
It was a CactusCon hoodie that I threw a suit jacket over.
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to spice it up a little bit.
So you went the expensive route. You went the two outfit to one.
But it was like I was wearing that hoodie the entire day before because it's freaking cold. It's cold in here right now. I am always cold.
I set it to 73.
Oof. We're gonna bump it up here. We'll take a break. Bump it up.
We can. The thermostat's right out there. So.
But yeah, no. Okay, so tell me more about this. I like hearing so.
Oh, so okay. So at the time.
Yeah.
Wait, when?
That would have been right about your departure, right?
No.
No?
Wait. No, it would have been 1 year after.
Okay.
And so this was the situation I told you where I lost all kinds of money was September 9th of 23. I remember the day. Trust me, I remember the email when I got it. It was like I was actually at a conference in San Antonio where I was living at the time. And I was waiting to go into a presentation about something digital transformation or just like something work related. And I was sitting there and I open my phone and I see the message and I'm thinking it's one thing. And then it ends up being something on the other side. I remember like just feeling like my life just fell apart in my hands.
Oof.
And I left the conference and I walked to the parking garage and I was on the third floor. And I remember because I had parked in the corner of the parking garage and it was in a really weird spot. Like it was literally in the corner. And the only way to get out was to back up, but there was a lot of traffic. I remember thinking, like, I walked to the edge and I looked down and I was like, I don't think that would take care of it.
Dude.
Right?
Yeah.
So then I called my buddy who was working at NetApp at the time. And I jokingly said, hey, man, like, I just got this message. Have you heard anything? He's like, nah. What's up? I'm like, well, I'm at a parking garage and I'm about to go home. But I'm like staring off this edge, and if I was one floor higher, we might test it out. And he's like, dude, like, what are you talking about? And I told him, I was like, dude, like, it's over. I got burned. I just lost everything. Like, the life is over. Like, at this point, like, I would say a lot of people say this is like unrecoverable, like dollar amount. And I remember just sitting there thinking to so I hopped in my car. He's like, dude, like, hang out, like, just hop in your car and we'll chat. So I was like, all right. I wouldn't have done anything because I'm the only one that works in my household, right? And unfortunately, certain situations are precluded from payout. So I'm at least aware of that.
Yeah, that's good. A little awareness there.
So it's like I wouldn't be crazy enough to find a reason. But I remember thinking, like, man, like, it'd be so much easier, right? And it's like to think that, like, the people that I had worked with or the people that I had essentially trained, brought onto my team, because, like, I was the senior guy, and I brought on a new person to help me with meetings because he was making phone calls and doing all these things. To think that the person that, you know, I had invested so much time and energy in helping them become, you know, a better salesperson would find it in themselves to kind of burn me the way that I got burned. It really felt personal. And so I'm at this event and I'm thinking, like, man, like, I can't believe I just got done dirty. Like, this is like super dirty. So I called my buddy Thomas and still talked to him. I got him a job, or not, I didn't get him a job. I helped him with meeting people, and he got the job on his own merits. He's a good guy. I remember thinking to myself, like, man, like, how does this all happen like this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then I went home, and that's kind of when I started, like, staring at the ceiling at like 3:00 in the morning, thinking, like, where did I go wrong? What could I have done better? How did I, like, how do you win and still lose at the same time? And then that's when I thought, like, I knew the people at the end of the road that signed the paperwork, that signed this purchase order. And if I knew who they were and they knew who I was, I might not be in the same situation.
No, I think that's kind of, it just ties it all together too. It's that relationship again. It's just, but it's knowing the game. It's knowing all of the pieces that are moving in the game, and then having those relationships with the right folks. And, you know, I hate that it is truly like, oh, it depends on who you know and all of that. But those are those circumstances where it truly is like, well, no, like, I needed to break down that wall that needed to be there.
I think the way I look at it is, like, it sucks, but sometimes you need to lose to win.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I look at it, is where, you know, with the, like, even like the recent event, I just gone with my camera to take pictures for free. Like, I do it for free. Like, if anyone's wondering, like, how much do I get paid? Like, I get paid $0 for this.
Good rate.
Not for
very popular rate.
Podcast is free, but even like when people see me out with my camera,
yeah,
I do it for fun, do it for free. I honestly do it to help me meet people in person and not be a salesperson, right? It's like, is the guy with the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And typically my main thing is to meet people, to have them come in here and talk, right? But that's, you know, it's free.
Yep.
And so when I go to these things and people are like, oh, he's here again. Like, what's up? I'm like, hey, like, I had one guy, you know Todd Bell?
I don't think so.
No. He has his own thing right now. But he was talking to me, he's like, so, like, he's whispering in my ear, like, how much are they paying you for this? While I'm taking pictures of one of the panels.
Right.
And I go, I do this for free.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you make money? And I was like, all right, so here's this. I gave him kind of like a quick rundown. But it's like, you know, it's, if you do something like this with the intent to sell, it kind of loses its maybe value.
So yeah, so we've got networks, we've got friends, we've got relationships. I think, you do some stalking, you figure out that a lot of these folks have worked together,
Yeah.
That's I like that whole map.
Well, so here's what I find interesting is so we have Frank Groneman in
Yeah,
a couple episodes ago,
Frank.
and I think I sent you a picture of it.
You did. that was another one. Add it to the list.
I sent a picture of him, and so I text Mike randomly in the middle of the night. Like, if there's one person that will respond at midnight,
Yeah,
it's Mike Manrod.
yeah, absolutely.
Right?
He will respond whenever. It's
so.
amazing.
By the way, I'm going to tell you this. He told me if I ever wanted to be a security researcher, I'd be really good at it.
Oh, hey.
Because he's working on some stuff right now.
Yep.
And he kind of told me about it. And if Mike listens to this, sorry. Well, not sorry, but like, it's the truth.
He's still waiting for a job, Mike. He's still waiting.
No, baby, for a job. No, he was saying stuff, and I'm like, I have no idea what Mike's talking about. Like, literally no idea. So I'm here working on some stuff.
Right.
So I hop on Google, and I just started typing, and I'm like reading, like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, still have no idea, but like I think I can make sense of it. And I don't want to say specifically because he's kind of working on like a special project right now. I don't want to talk about what it is because that would kind of ruin.
It would make it less special, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right. It would make it less. Well, you don't necessarily want to give away the secrets, right? So I'm sitting here reading some stuff, and I'm like, oh, like I have this question, so I ask it, and then I get a light bulb back from you get like on a message like light bulb, and I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, that's actually a really good point. So then I start thinking again. I'm like, well, if this is true, then what about this? And it has to do with like how things are done on the computer. Like, well, if this is the case, like, wouldn't this be the case too? And he's like, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit, okay. And then I go down the rabbit hole even further, and I'm like, so, but if both of these exist, kind of, what about this scenario? And that's when he's like, if you ever like get tired of doing podcasting, I think you would be really good at it as a security researcher. And I'm like,
yeah, of course I would.
That's right.
It's a. So when I interview, I try to tease out some curiosity question. Where is it? Are you willing to? Well, okay, I figured this out, but what does that mean? You dig a little further, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I got that. But let me do it. So asking and trying to figure out if folks just naturally have that inquisitiveness or that curiosity within them is something that is, that's not a trainable skill. Like
I think
you gotta have to have it.
Well, you kind of have to care.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of where I see like a lot of the podcast stuff is like, it's not product specific, right? We're not, there's really no like agenda, right? I'd look at it as like, if you were to sit in a room with a stranger at your own will, I have to say that because you can get up and leave if you want, and you weren't an expert in the field that they work in. Clearly, I'm not a security professional.
I'm not a sales professional.
Right.
We're good.
What would you talk about?
Yeah.
And not only what would you talk about, would you be able to talk to these people for hours at any time where they're not like checking their phone, trying to figure out when they can get an escape route?
Yeah.
Yeah, grab your phone and put your phone away. And so I see that as more like the only way to get from point A to point B with all these, we'll call them boundary conditions, is curiosity.
Yeah.
Because like, so this brings me to like a random point, which is typically how this goes. Have you ever been on a panel before?
Yeah.
Like, spill the tea or the beans. You know the questions before you even show up.
Typically. And yeah, so yes, you know the questions before you show up.
Mm-hmm. Which means you can
do your research. You can kind of form an opinion.
Make an answer. Create an answer.
Create an answer. Yeah, do all of that. I can tell you, been on a handful of panels. I typically don't end up saying what I thought I was going to say. So what is unique or what I think very nice about, that's not very nice. What's compelling about a panel discussion is it typically, if it's moderated correctly, is a discussion. So you're going to have somebody who maybe has an answer that they rehearsed or something, but that's now influencing your opinion on something, or that's changing a perspective, or moving you, or causing an emotion where you're like, I disagree. And so it's like when you can find those types of conversations, I think panels can be pretty interesting.
But how often does that happen?
I don't know. I mean, I would say that, yeah, no, I think a lot of the weight goes into the moderation of it, and being able to have a curious moderator that would be able to say, okay, well, yeah, you gave your response, but like, but tell us more, because the variables are the previous comments that were kind of maybe calling that into question, or maybe something that had come up at the conference in general, to be able to say, yeah, but that's a little different. So being able to push the buttons a little is needed to make a panel discussion interesting. There's terrible panel discussions where you're just like, okay, you're running through your script, and that's kind of lame.
And that's kind of like, that's kind of like a disservice. Well, hang on. Would you say it's disrespectful for you as a panelist to where it feels so staged while you're on stage? Because it's when I think of, so take a half step back, as I like to say now. I learned that from Kim Jones, by the way. Take a half step back, because like when you take your time to go to these events, it's not necessarily to show off. Like a lot of times you go there because there's a genuine interest of the people within the audience that are going to have questions. And ideally they view you as an expert in whatever category, whatever topic. So they want to get your take, right? And if you show up and they ask you a question and you give an answer, but there's more to the question that could have been asked, and they don't do it because they have another question to ask. To me, if that was me, it would almost feel like, well, you just want me here to answer a question versus actually help people understand to a greater degree what I'm aware of or what I know. And in my mind, when someone has the list of questions to just pump through, it's more about their list of questions than it is about the topic that they're facilitating. And when it's one-sided like that, to me, it would feel like disrespectful, because you're there as the expert, but they only want you there to just check a box.
Yeah, bad panel. You recorded it, but so here, I'll use this as an example. CactusCon this year, as we were designing the layout or the kind of that panel discussion.
Oh, the one at the end?
The one at the end.
Oh, so that was pre-planned.
Well, it was pre-planned in the sense of we came up with, I think it was 8 or 10 questions, which we knew there was no way that even a fraction of those, even half of those could be discussed in a thing. But we sent those 10 questions out to the panel saying, hey, this is what we are going to ask. We didn't assign the questions. We're just like, these are the things that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to put them all up on a slide, and we're going to ask the audience,
which ones they want.
Which ones do you want? Like what is important to you? You can see this panel of, experts that we have up here in front of you. Based on who you see up there, who do you want to hear talk about these things? And so I think, and as we were kind of coming up with the concept, it was like, well, maybe we'll get to like 3 or 4. I think they made it through 2 questions. And it's because it was such a healthy discussion amongst the panelists that were there to give opinions and impart their wisdom and share with the audience. So anyways, maybe a little biased, but I thought that was a great panel to be able to have that kind of interaction.
Yeah, I don't remember how many questions I think 2 sounds about right.
I missed the last
3.
little bit of it, but yeah.
I was sitting there like worried that something was going to break, because it's like, here I am like recording it.
Right.
Like if something goes down, like who are they going to look at? Like, Me,
You
right?
you had a heavyweight.
But I do remember I remember some of the people, mostly Bonner, because he's just so animated, right? He was here too at some point. He was guest like 7 or 8.
Okay.
But I had him in here. He's got some crazy stories too.
Yeah.
He has some crazy stories off camera. But I think overall, like I would say that was definitely a good discussion. So Andy, if you're listening,
Good job, Andy.
good job, Andy.
Yep.
Yeah,
Puts it all together.
but I think a big part of why it's so successful is because he cares.
Yeah.
And they kind of, if you take that back to, if you're sitting across from someone that has a motive or incentive or desire for their own thing versus just being curious, you get two separate outcomes. Because you've probably seen, I mean, I know you said this is the first podcast you've been on. It's so weird to say that I have a podcast, because it's like when I say I have a podcast, like, oh yeah, you sitting in front of your computer with a camera, like, okay. It's like, no, like probably ridiculous amount of money for a podcast that like no one knows where it's gonna go,
right?
And that's just another crazy part about me. But it's like to say, oh yeah, I have this thing. Well, what's the point? Like, what do you talk about? I don't know.
Yeah,
like whatever. And it to me, I feel like, I know you said you haven't listened to any of them, which is terrible.
I'm going to go listen to them now. So this is my full commitment. I'll go listen to them. It'll be added to the podcast.
Okay, the
stream,
they're
my rotation. But yeah, no, I wanted.
Well, no, there's nothing wrong if you don't. But I was going to fill you in that, and I've told the story a few times. So, I don't even know how many people usually listen. I just kind of like put this out there, and
you don't have the metrics on it.
I do. It doesn't tell you specifics on who. It just says numbers, right? It's just like X number of downloads, X number of repeated downloads. So I know there's a decent amount of people that listen over and over, or at least download. It doesn't tell you if there's playtime, at least that I'm aware of. But I've told this story so many times, and the first time was with Andy, where when I was doing sales at this other company, I had never reached out to an executive. And I was 24 at the time when I first started.
Yeah.
I'm 24. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no way that anyone's going to ever listen to me. Some random sales guy, which got me down this path of, well, how do you become different than everyone else? Which was kind of like, well, no one else talks about these things, or no one else helps people understand the world, right? And that's kind of where I think a lot of my success came from, was helping people understand the world that they live in that they don't understand from a sales side.
Yep.
Right. And it's like, well, I trust this guy because I know, I had one guy, buddy of mine, and we're having cigars on Friday. If you ever want to drive 60 miles again, we're going to be at this place by my house. And I was in Texas at the time, and there was a storm. Like, everything shut down. You couldn't get anywhere. There's no power at the house. We had moved our kids' beds into our closet, and we all slept on the floor because the closet was the only place where there was no windows. So it was below freezing in Texas. Streets are closed. Refrigerators had no power. We didn't have the Tesla things or anything to power the house. The guy that did, his power died 2 days later.
Right.
So he was feeling good for 2 days.
Postponed.
Yeah. But it was like a 5-day thing. And a buddy of mine, he's like, hey, like, send me where you're at. So I sent him a picture of all the roads that are closed, and he's like, well, let me know if you want me to go pick you up. I'm like, wait, what? You want to pick me up? He's like, yeah, if I need to drive out there to come get you and your family, I have a 4x4. We'll go out there and we'll just come back here and you'll hang out until it's resolved. I remember thinking, like, wait, so you want to come pick me up? You're going to drive 16 hours from Arizona to pick me up in Texas to drive me back just so that way we're not stuck here without power. And I remember, like, that's what being a good salesperson is. It's like, at the time he was a client and he was willing to drive that far to save me.
Yeah, that's a good dude.
Yeah. I still talk to him like once or twice a week.
Yeah.
We don't work together, but it's like he's a guy that I just keep in touch with.
Yeah.
And, I attribute that to the fact that I might be one of the few, if not the only, most honest salesperson that he's ever met. And when you're starting out new, it's like, how do you work with people that inherently have this default no trust for salespeople.
Yep.
Right. And so I never talked with any executives. And the only time I ever spoke with an executive was in an elevator. I told Gene this on Friday too. And the guy walked in and I saw his badge. And I'm like, oh, this is the guy.
Oh, this is it.
This is the guy.
Your pitch ready?
No, there wasn't a pitch. I was there for another meeting. You might know him. His name's Eric Ryer.
Okay.
He used to be the CISO for Blue Cross. And so he's in this elevator and I'm there with other people for a different meeting. He walks in and I'm like, this is the dude. So I reached my hand out. I was like, hey, Eric. At the time, I was going by my full name. I'm like, hey, Fernando. And he's like, huh?
Okay.
Like, hey, your rep. Oh, ding. It walks out. Hey, good to meet you. And that was the first time and the only time I'd ever spoken with a CISO. And now, whenever I invite people, I'm like, does it have a C in their title?
Right.
No? All right, not next time.
Yeah.
Right? I'm trying to like maneuver my way into just being comfortable around anyone. And have that be where it's like, I don't care who you sit across from me. They're going to sit down. We're going to chat about whatever. And they're going to leave feeling like, he actually was interested in what I had to say.
Yeah.
So now.
What else would we say then? Talk about our friends. So, I was wanting to tell you this. So this circle that happens, the interconnectivity and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of good that comes from it, right? A lot of bad too, right?
Between like your friends?
Well, not friends, obviously. Like, like if you don't like working with somebody or they didn't like working with you, like, gotta watch out. You can end up on the blacklist of those kind of things. But
yeah,
I wouldn't say that's definitely a problem. But now I think about like where you meet those people, how you met them, the types of relationships that you formed with them. Like CactusCon is recent, but I ran into a guy that I worked with years ago kind of thing. And I'm like, dude, like, and we had the best chat reminiscing of like, do you remember doing this? Do you remember this? How's this guy?
Yeah.
It's just amazing to like have that kind of network and connection with people.
Like picking up where you left off.
Yeah, picking right up where you leave off. So, but see, trying to think of fun stories like that where, like, I guess I remember meeting Eccles for the first time, walks into a lunch that my boss had set up and we were working for SRP at the time. And he brings Mike in and he's like, he's going to help us with our compliance program. I don't know. We're like, okay. Like I was doing SOC work. I think I was doing forensics work at the time. And I was like, okay, what's compliance? Like, I don't get what that is. But that's where Mike and I's paths crossed the first time, like doing these just really random security jobs at SRP.
So this was before Maricopa?
This was, yeah. So I got to get better at my years, but it would have been circa 2006, 7, something like that. So back, way back. So yeah, we worked together a few years. Mike loves telling a story where he's like, you were the only, when he's like, one day I was talking about people that should consult. He's like, you should consult. You want to go? And I'm like, yeah, let's go do that. And he's like, you're the only person I've ever talked to that thought that was a good idea. And he's like, you're the only one that stood up and walked out. So, but yeah, so I left SRP. I went and consulted for a few years. And
so was that hard though?
It was super hard. I had worked there for 12 years.
At SRP?
At SRP.
But was it hard leaving like a guaranteed income? Or was it hard when you realized that people weren't picking up the phone like they would when you were at SRP?
It was, it's interesting. So it was frightening from an income perspective because it was like there's variables when you're trying to be a consultant and do work. And yes, I was launching to a company. So I went and I worked for SAIC, and SAIC, very large company, like very good reputation. And in the consulting space, the consultancy or the practice that we were standing up was doing well. So, but at the same time, that doesn't last forever, right? Like things change.
Yeah. It's like you gotta
stamina. Yeah. You gotta sell something else and do all of those things. And so that's a challenge. Like I just like doing the work. I don't necessarily like having to go and pitch the sales, but that forced me out of my comfort zone to go do that. And so I did it. But the fun part was, just seeing different places, meeting different people. Like I went and dropped into companies and we were helping people build out their cyber programs.
Mhm.
And there's people that I met through that I talk to weekly. Like they're in that circle of people. They don't live anywhere close to me. I've never worked with them again, but they're just good people like that I found along the way.
So how big is the circle?
I don't know. I can't really put a number to it. Like there's the tight inner circle that I would say is probably less than 5 people. Like there's like just like
Okay.
so that's a pentagon, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not much of a circle.
Yeah.
But the outer circle there's probably, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to be like, oh, I got so many in my circle. It's like 100 people. I don't know.
About 50 loyal fans.
Yeah. I don't know how many followers I got, but I'd say there's a good solid 50 folks that if you were to just think of maybe work connections or, past employees or past bosses, there's probably a good 50 folks that I would say I'd pick up their call.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
So I don't know if this is like a selfish question, but of the inner 5,
Yeah.
did I make it there? Not me personally to be in there, but I'm saying, did I connect with someone in that circle to where you're like,
yeah, that's the only reason I'm here.
Really? So
yeah. So that was your path to me. It was through one of
I got through one of the 5 people.
Yeah.
Damn.
You got through a couple of the 5 people.
Really?
To be honest. So, but to me, it's like, but I keep things so tight. Like I really don't open up and extend out to a lot. So I keep my circle small.
Yeah. Well, I guess I wasn't trying to be in the circle. I was just talking to people.
Yeah, there's
right?
time.
And it's like, just wondering, like, I wonder, like, what the tipping point was where it's like, all right, I got this random picture of this guy smoking cigars with a friend of mine.
Well, I got a lot of those pictures. No, I'm just teasing. So, yeah. So, what's the story with this? And keep kicking it.
So,
You
let me
play?
see here. So this cello is, I don't know if it's necessarily like a personal story, but it is, part of a story.
Okay. It's part of Fern.
Yeah.
Not just something you picked up at Goodwill to look cool in a pack.
No.
Okay.
This is definitely not Goodwill. So I'll give you the rundown. So we had moved out to Arizona from Michigan in 2000. At the time I was in junior high. So I was born and raised in Detroit. So similar to Mike, Vegas Mike, different part, right? Well, actually, a lot of people are from Detroit. But I kind of grew up in some questionable neighborhoods.
Okay.
Right. Like, I've been robbed a couple times on my way to school.
Yikes.
Type of stories. So it wasn't the best. And so when we moved out here, have you ever heard of like FUBU?
Yeah.
Big FUBU wear.
Okay.
There's a company called Pelly Pelly.
Okay.
Big on that. I kind of wore a lot of clothes that would put me in a category where people would see me and probably hold their purse strings tighter if we were walking along the same side of the road. So when I came to Arizona, like straight A student, honors, AP, didn't know about those.
Right.
Tested into them in junior high, passed, got into them. So it's me looking like I don't belong. Right. And this is junior high.
Mm-hmm.
No friends, didn't know anyone, had glasses. Just, I didn't fit in.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have any friends. So what I would do is I was in orchestra. I would go to the lunchroom. I would get lunch if I bought anything. Sometimes I didn't eat. Sometimes I just didn't have enough money on my card.
Yeah.
Right. And I knew that because it's like, you can see your balance, you know what you have, and you know how much pizza and fries cost. And it's like, I knew my parents, they were like, oh, you can take this, pack your lunch. Like, we have that. Nah, man, who wants to pack a lunch? So I would purposely starve because I didn't want to be seen with, wheat bread and turkey.
Right. Lunch. Yeah.
Right. Or walk around with a lunchbox. Like, who does that in junior high? That's not cool. But it was my situation.
Yeah.
So I would starve. sometimes. And I would always go to the orchestra room because my teacher at the time, her name was Mrs. Deuce. She had offered extra credit if you could play multi octave scales. And so I would show up with food or without. And I would, so there was an orchestra room, and then there was the storage room, which were where all the instruments went. And I would go in there and essentially hide because I didn't have any friends. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to sit? And then I got this idea that, like, oh, I could just practice on my cello. So I would go in there and I would grab a cello and I would just practice at lunchtime. I was the only person that was there. Sometimes she'd walk in, from her lunch, going out. She'd say, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm just, practicing, me by myself. So I would always practice at lunchtime. And eventually I would do scales, 3-4 octaves on this bad boy. Not this one specifically, but I would do them and I would get extra credit. So I passed orchestra with like an A+ without even trying.
Yeah.
And eventually it got to the point where, I qualified for like All-State or like higher orchestra, like where you kind of audition, and based on the audition, you get placed into like a state group and you kind of play with the other people in that group. But in junior high, it was kind of like my start where I really kind of, because I didn't have any friends, I kind of hung out with the instruments.
Yeah.
Right. Just me and the cello. And eventually when I got to, I think 8th grade, I had saved up enough money to buy my own. And so my parents drove down to Tucson to a place called Southwest Strings. And I picked this bad boy up. Then I saved all the money for it. I bought it. And this is what I played all the way through high school. I didn't play in college, like during school, but I played, and I was messing with it last night when I was doing like this MTV video that I showed you. I don't think I showed you the full video, but I was making it and I thought, man, like I kind of see this cello. It's like it's in the middle of the room, but it's also like a reminder of like the only other person that I hung out with, right?
Yeah.
Through junior high. It was like my friend.
Yeah.
It wasn't this one, but it was a cello. And it was the only person that I hung out with every single day for at least 1 hour, playing scales, doing extra credit. And I thought to myself, it was in a case when we moved, and I thought, hey, it'd be really cool if I put it in there. And then like when I was thinking about it like a couple of weeks ago, it's almost like a friend.
Yeah.
Right. And what better way to make new friends than with hanging out.
You need the intro, right? Like it's
so I just hang out like when people come in, a lot of times, we'll text or like we'll send messages or I'll send clips. Like there's so many people that have been in here that I just talk to regularly just about whatever, right? With Lester, it might be watches, right?
Yeah.
With Dina, it might be something with whatever she has going on with her family. Yeah. It just depends on the person, right? With Andy, it was CactusCon. But now it's like I have this cello, and it was, essentially the one friend that I had. And now my friend gets to hang out with me.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, your new friends.
Well, I make new friends.
There you go. Oh, that's cool. So, I like that story, and that's fantastic.
That's kind of the origin of it. But I think this thing was made in 2000 or 2002. So it's a fairly, relatively old, but it's in pristine condition. The sound post on the inside fell when we moved. There's a couple cracks on it, but I can still play. I just haven't played it. And I think it's kind of just there as a reminder of just, the one friend that I could count on, even though it never knew that it was the friend.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool, man. Very cool. Yeah. Friends are the best. Having them to lean on, having them to call up when you need them. Ask some questions too.
Ask them about the vendors.
Ask them about the dirty, dirty vendors.
Dirty vendors. But here's the thing is like, it's not like just, it's, we're not trying to poop on people or shit on them, but the reality is it's just a lot of really bad people in sales.
And I think just like anything, right? It's like you have the one vehicle that didn't start in the morning. It was oh, it's a Ford or whatever it, it's just like, oh, I'm never going to own one of those again. And it's just that bad flavor where,
Yeah.
we've all had the bad salesman or the pushy salesman or the not helpful salesman.
This is the one time, it ruins it for the bunch, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to do better, but a lot of times, like, the money gets in the way. The money kind of clouds
Sure.
for a lot of
Sure.
people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my friend. Now you know the story, not now of the handful of people that listen over and over. Now they know the story, and I don't know. I just think it's like a cool thing to have.
Yeah.
And plus, it kind of like breaks up this wall
Yeah.
because the wall is pretty intimidating if you're staring at it.
I tried not to.
And I kind of designed it to where when you're sitting close enough to it and you look along it, it's like a one solid color. Like, you see how it's all black?
Totally.
So that was the idea, was that it'd be like a black wall, but depending on your perspective, it changed. Because, not all things are the way that they seem. Was kind of like the logic. Just like these things behind us, they all kind of converge on the center.
Yep.
You notice where your head falls?
Oh, right. Is that better?
Well, it's like right in the middle. And the idea with these was that they could pop in and out if I needed to, but then the green screen, so then I could just change it out whenever I wanted.
Mm.
But the thought was, if the pattern kind of came towards the center, people's eyes would be naturally drawn towards the center, which is the speaker.
To the people.
Yeah.
There you go.
So there's a lot of design thoughts that went into this, right? And then, like some other stories. But overall, like I told you, it's more so hopefully just a place for people to go, share some stories, maybe learn some new things.
Yeah.
Maybe learn some things about sales, maybe learn some things about tech. Probably not for me. Or like security.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we talked about any of that stuff. No, but no, you're right. Like, it's so it's cool. Yeah, I like it. I think I told you right when I walked in, it had a vibe.
You guys, we were vibing for.
But it's like the idea that, you put your time and effort and passion into it and kind of put something together and tell it wasn't just thrown together, right? It was something you worked on.
Oh yeah, it took me at least a month and a half to put together because these were all cut from a 4x8 sheet.
Hmm.
So each one of these was part of a 4x8
Bust
sheet.
out the table saw?
Yeah.
Nice.
Table saw, router, sander, prime paint, first coat, second coat, nail gun, glue, pocket holes, lighting. I even had it to where these structures behind us were built with 1-inch thick steel. So these are actually heavy, and they're on a stand that was basically built to where it mounts in and holds these. So they're not laying against the wall. Okay. They're actually mounted to the feet. You can actually see the feet. It's rolled steel.
Oh, see, I'm
it's like
expecting this thing now.
I think it's like 1/4-inch steel.
Yep.
That was welded.
That's great.
Even the wiring was done. So there's a lot of, I guess, thought that went into the design for it. And that's probably where it ended. Because then it was just like, all right, well, I'm done.
Yeah, now I got to get it working. Let's get it in and start making
we got to get people to show up.
Yeah.
So now that you're here, we might as well ask you like some interesting questions.
Bring it on.
So the first thing that comes to mind is a lot of times people that listen say that they didn't know something about someone that was a guest. So I'll give you a really good example. Andy was on, and he was on early. And when I reached out to Dina, because I didn't know who she was, even though we had worked with her company, I'd never met her, never spoke with her. It was security. So I was like, we don't really have a good security practice. So like, I'm just going to stay away, right? Rather than tarnish something that's going really well for us. Just don't risk it. Don't risk the biscuit, right? So we never really sold security to her company. I was like, I'll reach out to her, see what happens. And she's like, yeah, maybe. I might have gotten lucky because she tends to, put a lot of time into the community. And maybe she saw, it looks cool. Like, I'll figure it out. She told me, she's like, hey, like, I'll come through. But before I agree, I have to listen to what. So I know what to expect, really.
Okay.
So
she likes to prepare.
Yeah.
Wing it like me, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right? She prepared. Not that she didn't.
Good job, Tina.
She wanted to make sure what she was getting herself into. Versus, I think with you, So I don't think she really had the circle to say, hey, like, what does everyone think?
Mhm.
And I'm sure she has a circle, but it wasn't like I had tapped the shoulders on with a lot of them to where she could get like a yes or no quickly. Whereas like with you could ask Mike, Grimmel, Eccles, you get
Ask them all.
right? All of them, right?
They all spilled.
So your situation was different. She was like, hey, like, let me listen to these things. So she went through and listened to all of them. And I only had like 4 or 5 released at the time. I think up to Rich Owen. Andy was on there. Mike was on there. Lester. Another guy by the name Chris. And then Rich. So she's listening to Andy's episode.
Mhm.
And then we're at this conference. I forget which one it was. It might have been something towards the tail end of last year. Andy's there. She's like, she walks up to him. She's like, I feel like I know you. And he's like, huh? So she tells him, she's like, hey, I listened to your episode. You know, she knew about the story with like his health insurance when he started his business. She knew about what he did. She knew about kind of his take on certain things that we talked about. And just like that, he was talking to her.
The universe now knows some creepy stuff about all these people. And
I
you
wouldn't
won't
say-
need it.
I wouldn't say creepy.
Just teasing.
I would say it's more so like, like when you go to these conferences, it's always about the conference or it's always about the agenda. It's always about the questions,
Yeah.
right? But like, how many people actually know that you live or grew up or 4 generations,
Good old West Arizona. Yeah.
right? How many people know that you have family that used to work at the Mill Avenue
Right.
mill, like when it was operational,
Not many people.
right?
Yeah.
So, and I think there's a big part of us that, like the story with the cello. Like, I don't think anyone's really asked me, like, well, why is this here? What does it do over here?
Yeah.
I think, but there's a story behind that.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has a story to share, but not everyone asks the question of, what's the story?
I'll give you a couple. So
Go.
Not everybody knows that started off life wanting to be a golfer. So
Are you good now?
no, I suck.
So
That's
wait,
why I
wait,
didn't.
that's why I didn't work out.
Yeah, I know. But no, more for being involved in the golf industry. So I found the industry very appealing. So my second job, still in high school, but second job was working at a golf course.
Okay.
And it was
Picking up the balls.
just picking up the balls,
Wow.
washing the carts, like doing all of that thing. But like you start interacting with the players, with the people, operating the pro shop and all of these things. And it's just like, it's this fascinating world of just like all of these different pieces coming together to, one, present a game to people that they really like, but then, the business behind it and all of that. And I found it very fascinating.
Mhm.
My dad was a big golfer. I learned to golf, when I was very, very tiny. So golf was very natural. So I could go and I could play golf with all of these guys. It was and girls, and it was a very just easy thing for me to do. So I thought this is it. This is the path. So my second, third, fourth, like all of these different jobs were at different golf courses and trying to, what in the industry they call get into the program, right?
Like,
But
to become a golfer?
to become a golf pro or an administrative pro, not like a professional golfer, but
Like a scratch golfer?
well, yeah, that is a term, but to get into what the golf program, to be able to operate your own golf shop and to be able to do these things, you have to pass a certain level of scoring to be able to do that.
Okay.
I never quite made it. So it was just probably motivations and talent just didn't align. And, but I enjoyed every ounce of my time working it's very much the hospitality industry, right? Like you're learning to talk to people, you're talking to all different kinds of people, whether they're, rich businessmen or just scrape together the money to go play around at golf. Like you get to meet them all. And I just loved it. Like I just thought it was the coolest thing. And so I was doing that, going to college, and I think at a certain point had a wake up of like, this was not going to be the path to maybe being self-sustaining or being able to purchase a vehicle on my own. It wasn't a path to riches. It was fulfilling. It was fun, but it wasn't quite a real job.
But you were broke.
I was broke.
Yeah.
And it was funny. Like I was not cash poor. So in the industry, you can make tips and you can do all of these things. And my wife now was my girlfriend at the time. She would always laugh because like I'd pay for dinner with like ones. She's like, what are you doing? But I had loaned some. My dad had loaned me some money, and I would go and I would pay him like loan payments back in ones, and and like tip money.
So people are questioning.
They're like, "What are you doing with this?" So it was nice. So I had cash, but I was not like making a large salary.
Yeah.
So, but it was also the motivator too at the time to be like, well, you should get your butt in gear and do college. Like more than one class at a time kind of thing. And that was definitely the program that I was on at the time. I'm like, no, I'm going to go play golf. I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
Take a class. So yeah, so that was my start. But another fun story, I guess, but just kind of going down the line of, I left the golf course and to leave the golf course was, hey, you should go to ASU. It's college. I had a good friend that was going there. He's like, come room with me. I got a place close to campus. All this stuff. I'm like, yep, that's it. Let's go do that. He was a student intern for SRP. And he's like, you should go apply for an internship and do all of these. And I'm like, yes.
Is this where it started for you?
That was the kind of the origin into it. But he was just worried. He said, I like it, so let's go do that. And so I asked my dad, I asked my grandpa, I'm like, hey, like, what do you think about this place? And my grandpa's like, oh, I know somebody there. Like, I'll get you.
I'm gonna get you in.
I'm gonna get you in.
I'm gonna get you in, buddy.
Yeah. And I'm like, let's do this. I'm gonna roll in there.
Didn't work.
I met with the HR director guy, and he's like, well, this is interesting. I don't normally get resumes, that are forwarded to us from our president. And he's like, but we don't have anything for you. So see you later. My grandpa he was a farmer, right? He ended up knowing the president of SRP at the time. And he called him up and said, hey, can you get my, no.
So the number one person that runs the company couldn't even get you in.
Couldn't do it. But here's the fun thing. The HR director at the time, I still remember his face. He's like, you're not going to get anything from us like this, but you can go work over here in our or you can apply to go work in our customer service center. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's give it a go. And
how much were they paying at the time?
$10 an hour. So
this was like 2000.
Yeah. No, well, this was 98, 90, 98, 99, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I was making 5 1/4 at the golf course, like plus tips.
I was making 5 1/4 at Wendy's in high school, 2000.
So here, let's rewind a little bit. My first job was bagging groceries at Safeway, $3.15 an hour. Right? Like
no tips.
No tips. You weren't allowed to tip.
What Safeway was it? A Safeway in Wickenburg?
Wickenburg, yeah.
Yeah. The only one that's there?
The only one that's there.
Okay. Do you still shop there?
My mom still does. And it's in a new building now. They moved it across the street. I think the old one's a 99-cent store or something now. But
$1.25 store now.
Yeah.
Whatever. $1.50 now.
Man, yeah. So I remember cashing that first paycheck. At Safeway, they would pay you weekly. So it was like it was like $62. Like, yes, I'm loaded. So
that couldn't even get you a run at Sprouts these days.
No.
I went to Sprouts this morning.
Ugh.
And I bought my wife. She wanted some vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
$45. I bought some chicken. Like, we're gonna probably have chicken tonight.
Yeah.
I'm like chicken fried rice.
Oof.
And so I bought the chicken. It was like $20.
Yeah.
And I bought like the frozen vegetables, so I can like throw them in easily without having like cut and like fresh. A few bucks. I think I left there spending like $80.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, it's just for vitamins and one meal, which is, dinner. So when you say $62,
Yeah.
I feel a struggle, man. Like,
Yeah.
could you imagine working an entire week just to eat one meal for $4?
It was that's an awful thought. I don't like it. But yeah, speaking of Sprouts, we swung by there on the way home the other night. We're like, we just need chicken and tortillas. We pick up a few other things and we're walking out with
$100.
one bag of groceries for $100.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. That's crazy.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, I got my butt in gear. I went through the call. So SRP's call center training was interesting. You would show up on an open call day and they would be like, take this test. And if you pass the test, then we'll let you into the next phase, which is you're going to come in and you're going to learn our systems. And so
it wasn't like an interview. It was like a live.
It was like a live, like put you in. They just, there was hundreds of people. They would go in, put you through these things. And if you made the cut, then they'd put you into an interview process and all this. So I passed the test, passed the interview. They put me in like, I think it was like a 2-month training or a 6-week training. It was a long training and they paid you,
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could do that. And I think it was something too, I don't remember at this point, but it was like training was paid either less or more. So it was like as soon as you got done with training and dropped into the real job, like your pay changed. So, but I did that for like a whole, like, I think it was like 9 months where I was just like, as soon as they said you had like a 6-month commitment after you went through all of the training. And I think I lasted a little extra time. And as soon as I was able to go, I'm like, out. I need something, but I loved it. I thought it was just, I don't know. I guess I like working it.
Well, are you saying that because it's being recorded or you actually mean it?
No, I mean it. Like it was just so it was like, it was a whole different world there. Like there was just working around the clock, people like just passionate about doing stuff. It was just, and it was a call center. Like it wasn't anything, but like there were people, they were way into it. But then the skill set, like I was so impressed by, they had this mainframe system that was their customer, their CRM that, they take payments and they set up new accounts and do all of these things.
400?
It was, well, long story endless, my first security job was maintaining the RACF permissions to actually facilitate that mainframe system at SRP. But the customer service side of it, it was just these people memorizing these things and doing all of this stuff. And they were just, it was impressive to see them do all of that.
Black screen, green letters, just
exactly.
Enter.
Yes. And you'd look like a rock star if you knew how to write a macro to like fill in things and do stuff. And so,
okay.
Yeah. So there was a lot of good stuff going on there. I, kind of moved around SRP quite a bit. That was my other favorite part of just like do something for a year and get tapped to go do something else or new department. And so I went through the technical support center for the call center, did IVR programming, like did the, just cool projects that you never thought would be something I'd be working on.
So at what point did you realize golf was just dead?
Yeah. So it was, so I continued to play for a long time. Like it was just very much something that I would do. It was about the time that I think, a little after my kids were born, where it was just like, something's got to give here. There's a lot of time that you commit to golfing. It's a quick round is 5 hours of your time. If you live close to the course and it's playing well.
Or it's like a half course, like the 9, like I don't know the term, but like you play the front or play the back kind of thing. Like you only do half of it, right? Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I went from playing every day because when you work there, it's just like, okay, I'm done with work. I'm going to go play now. And when, then after that, you have to maintain your connections at these golf courses because it's freaking expensive to like pay greens fees and all of those things. And so anyways, just continue to play, but it tapered off. It's completely dead now. I don't play at all.
Do you own a set?
I do. Yeah. I'm multiple.
So when was the last time you played?
I played last year sometime. I think I played in some charity
Sure.
golf tournament, something or other. But like,
Do you ever want to feel good about how well you play?
I feel like you're going to try.
Because I'm not very good.
Yeah.
So I had a membership to Topgolf for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I was paying like $100 a month. And I would show up at like 9 o'clock when they open to whack like 250 balls
Really?
just for an hour and a half straight.
Yeah.
And I got fairly decent. Like I could send them to the back
Mm-hmm.
with a 5-iron. And I was just like, Zoom. And I paid a guy for some lessons just to make sure, like because I didn't know how to play.
Yeah.
And, you know, a little side quest of mine was, well, if you're going to, and this was before I started podcasting, this was like a year into my entrepreneurial journey when I first started. I was like, well, a lot of executives love golf and I suck. So I might as well practice and get good.
Yeah.
So I bought a club, bought a tailor-made P790.
Okay.
Stainless, just forgiving. I don't even know what it's made out of, but it might be a 770 or a 790. It's in my garage right now. And bought it for $100. Actually 200 because I lost 100. I went to Costco and apparently 100 fell out of my pocket.
Oh.
So I had to pay the guy 100, so I ended up paying 200 for this one club.
One club, $100.
Yeah. I think it was brand new. It was like $200.
Yeah. No, they're not cheap.
Something crazy, right? So technically I paid full price, but it was a used club, and I bought it, and I was like, well, I'm not going to buy a whole set. I'm going to buy something. And I think it was a 7-iron. It's like, this is kind of like middle of the road. Don't know what the hell I'm doing. So I bought it, paid for a couple lessons. The guy was like, dude, like, you've got some serious power. Like,
Yeah. I know it.
Yeah, boy. Like,
Yeah. Me and Tiger.
said I'm going to send these things like 300 meters or whatever.
Yeah.
So I did a few lessons, kind of picked it up, and then I bought a full set, but it was a used set for a few $100. I found a guy that was like upgrade.
Yeah.
So I bought the rest of the 7 series, like the P770 or whatever it is. But I've never owned a driver. And so I was going to this Topgolf every single day, just boom, every morning. I think it was actually 10. Just I go to the gym. This was in San Antonio, by the way. So I go to the gym, go to Topgolf. Lifetime, Topgolf. And then I take the kids with me on every Friday, and we'd go have like chicken tenders and fries and whatever food that they have. And I was a platinum member, so I get like a 20% discount. Like, get whatever you want, kids.
Yeah.
It's on me. It's on me. And we would eat. And then I kind of just like fell off. I think I hurt my finger at some point where I couldn't like bend it. And I was like, there's no point. And then the membership expired. And I was like, I just never go back. But I haven't picked it up in about a year and a half. So I might not even be good. That's what I'm saying. If you're looking for someone that is realistically terrible relative to your experience,
Sure.
I might be down.
You're my guy.
I might be your guy. I might be your self-confidence boost.
Right.
If you had an issue.
Yeah.
If you had any sort of issues with how well you felt you played,
That's
I might be your guy. Because I've lost more balls than I've kept. That's for sure. But I haven't played in a while. And usually it's like, people are like, hey, you want to go? Or like vendors and stuff. And it's just like,
there's a lot of golf going around. So credit to my good friend Emmanuel. He drugged me out of retirement, and he was just persistent. He's like, come on, let's go play. Let's go play. Let's go play. And finally one day I'm like, okay, fine. Like, let's go play. We entered into it was a, local event, but it was like a security event, charity tournament, like scramble tournament. Mm-hmm. We won.
Wait, really?
Like,
Wait.
and it was like, yeah, we had a good team, but it was like,
what did you score? Or
it was a so in a scramble, it's a collective score. So, so you all play just one ball, but you each get to hit a ball. So
the lowest shots,
the best shot you pick. And so then you go to the next one. You all hit 4 shots. You each hit 1 shot, and you pick the best one, and you move through the end of the hole there. So,
so of Was it 18 holes?
Yeah.
How many did you have the best score on?
I don't know, a couple. Like,
Well, come on.
no, I don't know.
You have to know.
I don't know.
If you know that you guys won, you have to know.
So that's the best part about a scramble. It makes you feel really good because you can have like 6 terrible holes and then you can just like have 3 in a row that you hit every shot on, or you might be the guy that's making the putts that day. And, so it's truly a collective effort of that. But there were, we all had our moments on those ones.
I feel like there's a competitive side that you're hiding.
I don't have to. I like to win, but so I ultimately quit playing golf because it was, and this, well, rewind too, when I was consulting, I would travel with my clubs, because it was freaking boring to sit in the middle of Illinois in the summer after work. And it was either go find a beer to drink. This was when I would drink, or there were local golf, and I would just go catch 9 holes or hit some balls after work. And that was a much better way to spend the afternoon. And actually, I met a lot of cool people doing that too. There's just
golfing,
a lot of just people heading to get 9 holes after work. And they were all the executives. They were you'd oh, you're the CEO of this. And so we'd talk about their business.
Well, hang on a second. Back up.
Peace out. See you later.
Becca, you said CEO of Disney?
No, this, that, or whatever. No, I was not at those courses.
Okay, because you kind of brushed past it.
No. They were the C-levels of their companies that were in the area. And you're just okay, cool. Nice to meet you. I'd never see him again, but there are a few guys that I would end up syncing up with. But there was the point where I couldn't get any better because it was either I need to go practice and play more, or
a living,
or go work and have a family and all of that stuff. And to me, that got frustrating. I was just okay, well, good as it's going to get, and it's not good enough. So
then you're doing customer service, and then at some point they're just hey, we have this opening.
Yeah. So back in SRP, it was very much they would hire internally first. So they would post, I think there was even a requirement where they had to post it internally and let it operate for a week or run for a week, take applicants before you could post it externally. So my very first launch after the customer service was the customer service tech support. So that was a whole different division where they supported the phones, the IVR, all the different technologies that would make up the call center. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was fantastic because you still got to interact with all of the same people, but now you were the person, fixing the phone. You were the fix-it guy. That was kind of a natural progression because this time too, I'd figured out that going to school more was a good decision. And so I was doing the nights and weekend shift, which left a lot of free time to kind of figure out how their systems work. A friend of mine and I found some vulnerabilities in the way that it was actually a system that gathered sensitive information, didn't store it properly. So we figured out how to gather it all up and presented it to folks and said, hey, there's a problem here. So that was kind of my first, I didn't know it at the time, but that was my first vulnerability disclosure. That was.
So did they not have a security team at the time?
Did not. So.
Which is crazy.
Super crazy. So I'll fast forward and I'll get to that. So I worked there. Then I worked for a different technology team under the customer service umbrella, but it was in their metering and customer technologies. And so
at people's house kind of thing?
Yeah. So we were responsible for investigating the smart metering programs that were coming into play. So instead of the meter reader going to your house, the meter was calling in to
is
say.
It Empower is what they call it? Or?
Empower is one of them. Well, Empower is the prepaid metering that we put in. So Empower was the idea of empowering the customer to actually be in control of their usage. It was kind of you could look at it as it was if you didn't have good credit or any credit, it was
prepaid credit card.
Yeah, it was an opportunity to say, well, I don't have enough for a deposit, but I can now have power in my apartment with prepaid metering. we were at the very front end of that, and it was not perfect. Like, you know, we got really good at troubleshooting like cards that wouldn't read and all of this kind of stuff. But so I have a lot of good friends that I met throughout all of that. But that rewind to that training class that I went in and I passed the test and did all of this. One of the people that I spent 6 weeks with, she was actually in the class right ahead of me. And so they kind of ran them in sequence. She was, she's a wonderful lady, Angela, but she got a job on the security team. And we had both been nominated as like go to this leadership training, something like that. And so I hadn't seen her in a couple of years. And we sat at the same table and we're reminiscing. And she's like, I just started working in this security team. Like, you should apply. You should come over. We're looking for somebody. And that's how my first step into security was due to Angela saying, hey, come work for us. We did RACAF mainframe security. And then we grew into doing like folder permissions. And then we grew into the guy I was talking about that reminiscing with earlier at CactusCon. We set up the first RSA tokens for multi-factor authentication that
Like
the company was using.
The key fobs?
Yep, the key fobs. We would play RSA token poker. You know, you'd have the numbers on there, figure out who would have the best hand. But my favorite part was we had the tokens only lasted, I think it was 3 years. And so they would expire, like hard expire.
Yeah.
Keep operating. And we had a bucket just massive in our
full of keys.
It was just full of old keys. And we're like, we don't know what to do with these, so we'll keep them. But we grew that team when I left. I think it was 30 plus people. That was like just doing, and you know, Mike was part of that. Like now doing compliance, like NERC SIP programs. We were doing vulnerability scanning. We were doing all components of security. We had a SOC. We had, you know, forensics. We had all of those components that were.
But before that,
yeah,
I wasn't there.
It was not. I guess I was employee 4 or 5 of the security team.
So it was essentially like the utility space. Well, I don't want to say not protected, but it was like one of like critical infrastructure. Nowadays, people look at those. You don't have a security program as critical infrastructure, but when you were there, it was kind of like
it was good engineering is what kind of what most, I believe, utility companies were relying on. There were a lot of smart engineers doing really smart things. They were building the control systems in really smart ways. They were, you know, isolating them. They were keeping them. And I don't know if it was just a natural, like, hey, this is ours over here and this is yours over here. So IT, you stay over here and control systems will stay over here, like, because they're different. And I think that worked for quite a while. And then I think what you know, the industry recognized as happening is there's efficiencies to connect these networks and to make your substation systems accessible or your relays accessible from the network to be able to monitor them and get to them. And so that's when, right when I was working there and we were figuring out like, what do those integrations look like and how do you keep them safe?
So is it safe to say that you and a handful of other people built like the first like SCADA IT, like HMI, like all the PLC stuff, like all the facilities and everything that they ran, like in the field, like in the control panels, like in the boxes with like all the Allen Bradley stuff, the Phoenix Contact, like all that fun stuff. You guys tied that into the business?
We were doing some of the first. I don't know where we were in the order of the larger scale of everybody focusing on it. But I mean, personally, I know we put the first intrusion detection system for SRP in the control systems network. It was a project that we had done on the corporate side. We're like, hey, here's an IDS. Here's what it looks like. Here's what the alerts. Here's what snort rules are. And here's how it translates, or here's what it looks like on a control systems network. Here's how we can identify things that shouldn't be here. And so that was very, I think, cutting edge at the time. Nobody was thinking that way. We were also, at least again, some of the first at SRP to do some of the vulnerability scanning of those SCADA or control systems networks. That was nerve-wracking and weird, but like you were, not finding Windows vulnerabilities now, you're finding open ports that you can do different things to. And so, yeah, all of those systems that you rattled off, they were all in there. What was interesting though, is none of the scanning technologies and things that we had knew what those were. Like they only knew how to kind of fingerprint and identify or Windows systems or some Linux systems at that time.
So do you feel like there was a missed opportunity on like starting an Armis back in the day?
I don't like thinking about that. It's a very frustrating topic where you're just like, I could have done like
shit, we were doing that.
That was, and this is why there's very smart people, and I'm not one of them, but like that can see those next leaps where you're just like, oh, well, we could take that and do this, and it turns into an art or whatever product that is just amazing to be able to use now. But yeah, no, that was fun. It was just super cool to be able to kind of have an open book of opportunity to build those out. So yeah, so it was, have you talked to or come across James Costello at all? He might have been mentioned.
So he never responded.
Yeah, he very much keeps to himself.
Okay.
So he's harder to get a hold of than me.
Do you have access to him?
I met him for lunch the other day, but that was a momentous moment for the two of us to get together.
Oh, really?
We hadn't seen each other in years. We always talked about it, but never would make it happen.
So is he over at Freeport?
Freeport McMurray now, yeah.
Okay.
But so fun story about James is through my small network, I get a call one day from my friend Jason. It's like, hey, I think I know somebody who's interested in coming and working at SRP. It's like, can you talk to him? And it was James. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll talk to him. And so we talk on the phone, and I'm a young kid, just like, dude, come on in. I'll take you to the cafeteria. We'll have lunch. And he's like, no, he's the wise, like trying to be like, no, I'm gonna,
like, I know better.
I know better. They see that. I'm like, who cares? And
so what was he interviewing for?
He was for our CISO position. So up until James, security was buried in IT, and we had a manager who didn't know. He was a phenomenal man, but he did not maybe know the intricacies of what security was really doing. He managed the team well. We all loved him. We all worked great with him.
Yeah,
but he wasn't driving us towards this is a vision, or this is how you secure the infrastructure, control system, or anything.
Okay.
So come to find out, again, super young, didn't know a lot of the stuff going on, but there was a lot of politics happening. There was a lot of big industry shifts happening as far as like compliance and the SIP programs and who was doing what and how they were doing it. But James was essentially brought on to kind of steer us through all of that. And so he was SRP's first CISO to be able to actually organize the team, have a security operations team, have a compliance team, have a vulnerability team. Blah. It's getting late, man. Vulnerability team. And so learned a bunch from James. He hired Mike. Mike convinced me to go consult. I go consult. And after so you had a question? What was?
No, I was tagging along for the ride.
So that's kind of the run through SRP. I think I was one of the last generations of folks to be in the pension program. So I've officially, I have a pension. Like, I don't know what it is from SRP for 12 years of service with them, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. 'Cause I noticed you were there for a while.
Yeah.
And then you left, and then you rejoined forces with Mike at
Maricopa County. So Mike and I talked a couple times a week as I was consulting, because it was just like, what's going on? Like,
beat your head against the wall.
Like, what am I doing? I didn't even tell that story. So this was back in the day that I wasn't smart enough to build in time between positions, right? It's like you quit one job on a Friday and you start the new one on a Monday, right? Like, it's That's how you do it.
I know someone that quit a job on a Thursday and started the next day on a Friday.
That's worse. Okay. You didn't even have the weekend. Okay. So, but
Well, it was 8 hours
yeah,
ish.
they
I don't know what the days were, but they essentially got to sleep.
That's hardcore.
Overnight. Yeah.
That's good. I like it. I left my last day on SRP at SRP on a Friday. Probably a big going away party. Massive. Whole company showed up, I'm sure.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. No, so left work on a Friday, had the weekend, and I think I was on a plane on Sunday to fly up to Wisconsin, my first project for SAIC. And it was in a little town called Two Rivers or Twin Rivers. They called it Trivers for the code name, or the locals, I guess, called it that. And the SAIC booked me into this lodge. It was just like sketchy, weird, out in the middle of nowhere.
Like Jason's in the back somewhere.
Exactly. Like you're just like the floors creaked. It was frightening.
Might be dead.
Yeah. So that was my first day on the job there. Met up with the team that Sunday night. And I'm like, what are we doing here? So like not a lot of onboarding, not a lot of like just prep or anything. They're just like, everything you were doing at SRP, go do it for these people. And I'm like, okay. That was kind of a big bucket, but okay. But it we figured it out pretty quick. It was essentially working for nuclear plant operators to put in cybersecurity programs to align with the compliance framework that was being mandated. So,
which didn't exist prior.
Didn't exist. So it was the NEI 0809. So let's see, NRC Code of Federal CFR 7354, 73.54 basically said nuclear plant operators must have a recognized security program. So the Nuclear Energy Institute published a paper that was basically just the NIST 853 or 171 controls restated into a format that made sense for nuclear. Mm-hmm. And they're like, so go do this. And none of the nuclear operators knew how to do that. They're smart, again, very smart engineers that could figure it out. But they're like, well, what does a critical asset mean? Like, what's the definition of that? Nobody's really put together any of those definitions or things yet. So they're like, well, what does it mean to do a intrusion detection? And like, well, we detect intruders at our front gate with the guys holding guns. Like, well, no, it's a different type of intrusion. And so as we were, you worked, those were the conversations we had with these folks. And so we worked through those programs. And so SAIC farmed me out, and I did that for a handful of different companies. And that's what I did. But traveling every week gets really tiresome. The miles don't make sense anymore. The first class upgrades, they're not worth it. Like, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. I couldn't hang. So talking to Mike, I'm like, how do you think I could get off the road? He's like, I need a deputy. He's like, I'll hire you at the county. Like, let's do this. I'm like,
so were you deputy CISO?
So that's what he called me. So I was technically the director of cyber assurance, which was risk management. We created the position. He always says, he's like, you always got to go do the fun, like the real security stuff. He's like, I just went and did the meetings. So
you're kind of like boots on the street.
Yeah, it was we did security. We implemented the DLP programs. We refreshed the networks. We stood up the new SIMS tools, and we built them out to actually be functional for the county.
So you guys essentially put in a lot of the stuff that Lester kind of came in afterwards and kind of ran.
There you go.
Lester built it.
Right. Lester just did everything we already set up. No, but
you guys were kind of like the precursor.
Yeah, we were there. I think there was technically somebody there short term in between Lester and Mike and I, but
we'll talk about that person.
Yeah, I don't know who. I technically don't know who they are, but
okay.
But here's the great thing about that time that I spent at Maricopa County. Again, not a long stint. I think it was 19, 20 months that I was there. Not because I didn't enjoy it. Just, we'll get to it, but another opportunity just kind of came banging on the door. But from that 18 months or 19 months that I was at Maricopa County,
Mhm.
best time of my life. Mike and I carpooled together. Like
Really?
he lived in Litchfield as well. So
No way.
like we lived, I think it was like a couple miles away from each other. Didn't even really realize it, but we drove to work together every single day. It was the best hour commute I have ever had, because we would just
Laughing?
we would laugh, but like from a work side, we would strategize. We're like, today we're going in to meet with the sheriff's office. Today we're going to meet with this person, or, and we would talk through all of it. And we would hit the front door of the county just like blazing. Like we would just start tearing, like we were jazzed, and we would start going through stuff. And it is just one of the most exciting time. And you don't often associate like a county job with being exciting and fun, but again, we had a blast. But that's where I met Manrod. Manrod was actually, Mike had hired him and I think around the same time. And he's like, hey, he'll report to you and he'll do these things. And that's where I got introduced to just the magical mind of Manrod. Like he is a savant with Post-it notes. Like you can just he can explain things really, really well. Mm-hmm. And that was just a beautiful thing to have on the team, where we were dissecting some pretty complicated concepts to introduce to the county. He's like, let's do it this way. Let's think about this. And so I had a wonderful team. Like we brought in a few people that I had met while I was on the road and said, come work for me. Let's do this. Had a few interns. One of the interns, Kevin, I've now hired Kevin 3 times. So we hired him at Maricopa County. I hired him when I went to Phoenix Children's, and I hired him when I went to Exponent. He's been hire right along. Smart guy. But he started as an intern with us at the county.
Okay.
A lot of smart kids came through as interns. So yeah, had a great time. County was great. But as I mentioned, a few months in, on one of those commutes, I get a recruiter call. It's like, hey, you interested in this? You should go apply. And it was for the CISO of Phoenix Children. And
were you in the car with Mike Eccles when that
Yep.
call came through?
Yep. And I was he was in the car for every interview. Like I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was in the car for salary negotiations. Was
it ever like, hey, you put that on mute real quick. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
He's like, mute.
All the time. Like,
okay.
But again, it was just a wonderful thing where we would just be like, okay, I'm going to have this call. It starts in 10 minutes. And we would talk through it, would strategize, and he would throw out stuff. What if they offer you $1 million? And, you're like, yeah, right. It's, it's healthcare, but still like,
yeah,
just talking through those things was powerful. And so
he wasn't ever really like your boss.
He was absolutely my boss.
But I think he's more of a friend, right? He's
always a friend,
right? Because it's like, I don't think most people will comfortably sit with their manager through an interview.
Yeah. You're right. You're like, right. So there was a very friends first, and then the job came after it. You made me think of, I think it was when, so Mike and I were instant friends. Like first time I met him, he was just like, I just liked talking to him. He was interesting, and, we had a lot of good conversations. But I think the night that it gelled for he and I, we were doing this NERC-CIP audit submission, and there was, I don't know if it was a shady thing that we were doing or if it was just whatever it was. We needed to be there at 1 a.m. to like get some submission in, but we had to like encrypt it in a certain fashion, and we had to package it in a certain way to make the submission just like do whatever it needed to do. And so I was doing forensics at the time for Salt River, and I had a whole forensics lab set up where we were running NCASE and, doing a bunch of different weird investigations. Just so ended up that rig was what we needed to get everything encrypted and transmitted and done just the way it was. So he and I were hanging out in my little lab like until 1 a.m, just like laughing, like telling stories, like
Mhm.
eating Cheetos, just like having a great time. So yeah, that's fun to think about. Like good times there.
So he's definitely one of the 5.
Maybe. Absolutely. But yeah, so Manred was on the team. A good friend of mine, Tim Foss, who's now the CISO of Phoenix Children's. I met him at a power plant and in Byron, Illinois. I think it was one of the power plants that we were working at. And so he was on the engineering cybersecurity team, and I was the hired hand to come in and help. And he was just one of those people that you meet where it's like,
This guy's cool.
this guy's cool, but he'll talk circles around any technical topic and smart. So anyways, that's where, I met a lot of fun people at the county. But yeah, like I said, the interview happened, the opportunity was presented. The Children's Hospital was like, let's do this. So that's where I went. And that was my first CISO position, to be able to go be the CISO for the Children's Hospital. It's where we put in Silence. I got to go do a bunch of presentations and meetings for them. Like that was fun. It's fun to work for a children's hospital, not because you get paid well, not because the mission is just beside itself awesome, but every vendor wants a children's hospital on their product listing.
Oh, like on the marketing slide?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Does that mean
It means everybody wanted a meeting, and it's very fortunate that we had a Starbucks in the lobby, because there would be a vendor a day that would come through and want to buy coffee and talk to you about this. So that was just became part of the day. It was also a nice negotiating point, be able to say, well, yeah, you can use the Children's Hospital logo on, your next marketing thing, but I'm going to need a price cut, or I'm going to need a
concession?
A concession or a break. But they also liked having me come talk at their events, or come tell the story about implementing this product or that product, and just had a good story with it.
So it's like
it was
free marketing almost.
Yeah. We did a pretty cool co-branding marketing with Silence. We took over all of the signage at the Phoenix at Sky Harbor Airport. And so I can still picture it, but it's like this picture of a nurse, like holding a baby, like saying, like, we are the protectors, or it was something like catchy like that. But
There was Silence. So
it was all green and shield and all of that stuff. Or it was protecting the protectors or something like that. And it was like,
this was like 2015, 2016, huh?
I think so. Yeah.
And there was a point where you couldn't go through Sky Harbor without seeing a Silence light. It would just slap you in the face.
Yes. Yep.
And I don't remember the Phoenix Children's Hospital.
Yep.
But I do remember Silence everywhere. And it's like, man, like up the escalator, down the escalator, baggage claim, like
everywhere.
I just need to see where my bag's at. Like what terminal or, what carousel am I supposed to go to?
Yep.
Silence.
Now it's all GCU. I mean, they ditched all the security products.
Is it really?
Yeah. I mean, just that's what it was when I was there a couple days ago.
I haven't been to Sky Harbor in a little bit, but
yeah, no. So that was fun. It was a good run. Learned a lot of great stuff. Yeah. There's just, I paused because I'm thinking about like, just.
How do you say this?
Yeah. Like it takes a special type of attacker to attack a children's hospital, right? What they did. There was, there were malware campaigns. There were, different data theft things and all of this stuff. And you're just like, how can you pass that moral barrier and whatnot to do that? And to be fair too, like some of it is just what I call like shrapnel, right? They're just, but they don't necessarily know where it's going. And it's unfortunately somebody not smart enough to recognize it and click on it or whatever it is at the hospital. And so those are definitely happening. But yeah, no, but all the way, some of the most exciting stuff was like learning like the biomedical side of how all the different instrumentation that actually connects to a patient and where that connects to an IT system or a network or a cloud service or like
Where that information goes.
where it goes, how it's getting its update, how it's being controlled. Like as you dive into those areas, you get freaked out pretty quick because you're like, well, shit, man, that's a patient that's receiving a certain amount of medication or is under a certain amount of radiation or doing these very specific things that could be destructive just so quickly. And
So some of those things is it's almost like if there would be a bad actor in the loop,
mhm.
they could potentially hit a knob. And not to like minimize it, but like I'm trying to like make it easy to understand, like flip a switch.
Yeah.
That could potentially hurt someone.
Yeah. And I think we see it across most industries, right? Like what's the motivation? Like, are you trying to make some money? You're trying to disrupt something. You're trying to just, make some noise. But yes, as simple as flipping a switch of, to turn something off would be very disruptive to a hospital, like you think about any business in Arizona, but you think of like patient critical businesses in Arizona in the middle of the summer, like your air conditioning is a critical system, like, like where you think like, so I'm talking like, oh, the thing hooked up to a patient and doing these things. If we disrupt that, like, well, okay, yeah, like that's an issue. Like we got to make sure that doesn't happen. You mess up with the air conditioning, like, well, now all of a sudden you can't do that treatment anymore. You got to move the patient out of there. You got to stop the treatment. You got to do these things. So there's
Like impact wise.
a whole bunch of impact associated with these systems. And so I think what you have to do is you need to start thinking about these things from those levels. Like you might not think about an HVAC system as this critical system that you have to protect. And, fortunately or unfortunately for some companies, there were public exploitations of those. So you start thinking of them and you make your correction, put your protections in place. But there's so many of those other systems that haven't been exploited yet that are, critical to keeping these businesses running and keeping the patient safe. So
is it safe to say you made changes based on target?
you would say, yeah, you would absolutely, that is absolutely safe to say. Like you would make changes to systems based on a just strategy to make sure that you're not next.
So that kind of takes me to like an interesting idea, like with the MGM stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know how long you've been at Exponent, but I imagine while you were there, MGM happened.
Yep.
Do you just like turn around like Monday morning, you show up and you say, hey, this is what we heard. This is what we're doing different. Like, does that like, not necessarily shooting from the hip, but like you kind of have to stay plugged in.
Oh yeah.
To kind of like move on the fly as you need to, right? Because otherwise you just become a target, right?
Yeah. Pivot or reprioritize or however you want to think. Like it's definitely not it shouldn't be shooting from the hip. It should be, I'm going to turn these knobs that I already have in place and I'm going to dial up protections over here. Or this is now not going to happen over here. You're obviously juggling resources, technologies, and all of that kind of bit. Manrod, no good event goes wasted.
Is that what he says?
Because if you have the event, right, like then all of a sudden you've got a spotlight, maybe some more funding, maybe some more people to go and work on it. But if you build that out a little bit, an MGM event or a Target event or you name whatever event it is,
Or dignity.
you have to learn from it. You have to say, is that something that could happen to us? So you start asking, do I run that same system? Do I have that same version of software installed? Do I, am I vulnerable to this?
Yeah. Like, do I meet the criteria?
Do I meet that criteria? Am I in the same industry? Is this threat actor focused on healthcare? Are they focused on energy? Are they focused on retail? What are they doing?
Or was their vector available to me?
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's what you want to shut down first, right? Like, and I think, so that's what we try to do, I think, generally. And in my strategies of building security programs is it's very, you fundamentally need the basics, right? You need a firewall, you need endpoint protection, you need like policy, you need those governing guardrails to
Yeah.
kind of help keep you down that path, right? And so it should be appropriate, or it should be fair to say, well, yesterday we didn't think that this was a threat vector, so our policy was a little more lax. Today, we saw in the morning headlines, this company uses this product that you use too. They're attacked, this attack vector, it's open. Turn that knob.
Yeah.
We're going to close that down. We don't want that open anymore. And so some of those are easier than others. Some of them are quicker than others. We, can
Just do your best.
do your best. You gotta, but you have to set yourself up to do the best, right? Like if you're so locked into certain things, which there are many reasons to be, yeah, if you can't integrate some flexibility in those things to be able to move, then you're going to get behind.
So it kind of makes me think of, do you have a source of information that you go to regularly to stay? Because like for me, like the news doesn't necessarily matter, right?
Yeah.
Like there's some stuff you go on LinkedIn, it's like, okay, it's just whatever. But like, where do you go? Because like, I mean, you have to stay on top of certain things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And podcasts typically are behind a few weeks. So it's not like you're listening to a podcast to find out what's going down in Vegas, like with the MGM. Like you're not catching up on that 3 weeks after it happened. Like, so where do you go? Or like, where can people go? Like,
so this is my favorite interview question, by the way, because
really?
I truly want to know where somebody's curiosity leads them to learn about these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a one-stop shop. I haven't found at least a good one yet. There's companies like Recorded Future. There's companies that will put out like,
Blog posts,
blogs or newsletters, and they're pretty real time. You can sign up. And so I think, well, my answer is it's a dozen different things. And so I've got like CISA alerts. I've got like vendor alerts. I've got, the intelligence from my intelligence partners that are going to feed me that information on a daily debrief. So the combination of those, it's at least a dozen things kind of brought into my mailbox. We actually have them ingested into like a Teams channel to be able to be like, these are the things that are going on right now. It's still not enough. Like I rely on a weekly meeting with my IT teams to help, because they have a whole slew of vendors that they deal with that, I might not be on their mailing distribution and all of these things, or they have different news feeds that they follow. And so it's very much when you hear of something, let me know. Like I want to, we had one last week. It was one of our network engineers. He's like, hey, did you hear about this? And it was like some development thing. It wasn't even in his thing, but he knew enough that like, well, I think I've heard them talk about this. So he asked. Sure enough, like hadn't hit my radar yet. Like it wasn't news. It wasn't observability. It wasn't no CVSS score number on it. It was, they just made an announcement. They're like, hey, we're going to fix this. But sure enough, it was something that was being exploited that we had enabled that, just took a few minutes to work through with the teams to shut it down. But it was one of those things. I'm like, I might not have ever have known about that.
Yeah, but I think that speaks more to like culturally, where people can say, like, I think because there's like two different, like maybe there's more, but like in my mind, there's two types of people. People that say, oh, that's not my problem,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone else.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if it's not my problem, like, well, yeah, it's not your problem that like this happened, but can you help?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe is the next question. Like, okay, like it's not your problem, or it's not your fault that someone's homeless. But are you in a position that maybe you could spare $1 or $2?
Right.
Well, it's like, then some people say it's not my problem. Like, I got my own problems to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but like, can you still help? Right?
That's it.
So it's like, I think culturally, if you don't have it ingrained to where you walk past something that's knocked over, and instead of walking past it, you pick it up and you say, well, I mean, it wasn't much effort, right? You just chalk it up to, well, it's just the right thing to do.
Yep.
I'll give you a really good example. And I think, so Manrod was the first guy to come in here.
Yep.
And I feel like I've come full circle. Or maybe not full circle, but I might have transitioned to the dark side
Okay.
of security side, right? And it's a fairly quick story, but it's like a Saturday night, 10 or 11 o'clock. And I'm on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me why, but I'm there and I'm scrolling and I see something and I'm like, the hell is this? Click a button. And I forget what it was, but it was like someone saying something. And like, to me, it felt like a phishing, right? So then I clicked on the profile, clicked a little bit further, new account within the last day.
Yeah.
And within 24 hours, they're saying something.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to bring people off to something else to do whatever. And I have screenshots because I took a picture of it. And I text Mike Manrod, and I'm like, yo, it's like Saturday night. And I'm over here just like protecting people.
Yeah.
Right? Because one of the things that I asked him, I said, like, how do you find the motivation to like not give up?
Mm.
Because the amount of, we'll say, bad actors versus good is significant.
Yeah.
Right? It's you against an onslaught. But like, you still show up every single day and you still fight.
Right.
Or you have like Tisu to help bring awareness, but like, you're outnumbered, Mike. Like,
Yeah.
Where is it?
Not only outnumbered by the attackers versus the defenders, but the numbers in the attackers' favors. I mean, you've heard the adage, they've got to be right once. We've got to be right every single time. So every attack that comes our way, you've got to stop it. But if they just get one through, that's usually enough to get some type of foothold, cause some type of disruption, enter in. So it's like, it's this magnet, like enormous like advantage to the threat actor.
Yeah. And so it's like, but yet you still show up every single day.
Yeah.
And so he like sent back like a laughing thing or something. I'm like, all right, like this is crazy. Like Saturday night.
Yeah.
I'm in my prime. I should be out doing something fun, hanging out with my wife. She's probably sitting next to me watching something on YouTube, and I'm over here like stopping a hacker.
Right.
Or not even stopping.
Right. Observing. You're
observing,
researching.
right? And this thought passed in my mind, and it's like, this is before I said anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is clearly someone doing something. And I can just keep clicking and get out of it and keep going, right? But then I remember thinking, because it had something to do with money. Oh, it was a person leaving comments on, oh, this person can help you at this account.com.
Yeah.
Message this person, they can help you with this issue. And it was like some issue like customer service related. And I remember thinking like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And then I went through and spent like 5 minutes looking at their previous comments, because you can do that. You click on their profile, click comments, and you can see. And it was like every single comment was about this email that was able to help a random person. Like, oh, this person, they used to work at that company, email them here.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no, we've ran into this. Check out this person. They can help you. Same email address, different person every single, or same email address, different story every single time.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, clearly if anyone spent any time, they would know that like this email belongs to just a random email, or not random, very specific email, but the story on how it's associated to solving someone's problem, which, preying on someone in need, clearly is like, okay, it's not what you think it is. Like, you're going to email them hoping for something, and they're going to like scam you out of like $5,000 or whatever it is. I remember thinking to myself, like, all right, like, what's the point? Like, I could say something, but like, what's going to come from that?
Right.
And then I started thinking, I was like, man, there's probably some old person out there. It's probably someone that I know. Could be like a family member. Just doesn't know better.
Yep.
And they're in a situation that they want to get out of. They're feeling pain, and they're like, how do I get out? And they might just message this person. So I'm like, man, screw that. So I went through and typed up a message like, yeah, okay, first of all, your account is bogus. Wrote out why I felt that way. I said, every single person, or this email that you say can help has literally helped the last 20 people for different situations within the same period of time. Like, you're a complete scam. Anyone that follows this is ridiculous. Like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. And then I just signed off. And I thought to myself, like, it's not about fighting the bad guys, right? It's about the people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about protecting the people that you care about, even if you don't know that you're protecting them. So when I say like full circle, I thought to myself, like with Mike, like the very first interview, I'm thinking to myself, like, how does this guy even wake up?
Yeah.
Like, where does he find the hope?
Yeah.
Because it's like uphill and the sun's setting behind the mountain. Like, you don't know what's coming, but yeah, you still wake up and climb every single day. And then here I was 9 months later in a situation that I could have said, it's not my problem. I'm just going to keep walking. Not my thing. Saturday night, I got things to do. Whatever. Someone else, let them deal with it. But instead, I took a few minutes, probably like 10, just to make sure that I wasn't, making an assumption on someone. And like someone's going to come back and be like, hey, what the hell, man? Like, no, I verify it. This is a scam. And not only did I verify it, pointed it out and left a comment. I don't know whatever came from that, but it's like, in my mind, a part of me is like, I get it. It's not, you're not protecting yourself. You're not protecting the company. You're, as Rich says, Rich Owen, it's security is about the people, and it's always been about the people. You don't have to know these people, but as long as you make the effort to protect them, even if it's not your problem, you might consider yourself in some form a security practitioner. You don't have to be a CISO to help people.
Absolutely.
Right. But what I thought was like, man, like, I think I get it. I think like part of me was like, took a step back and I'm like, wait, hang on a second. Like, why do I care about some random ass person on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
And I don't.
Right.
But the fact is that I would feel much worse knowing that someone else that I know could have been in a position where someone like third party from them could have taken 5 minutes to say something and spoken up. And it could have saved someone I know 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 or more. But unless that other person says, hey, you know what? It's not my problem, but I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
You kind of don't get that. Yeah. So it's not necessarily fighting the bad guys alone, which is kind of how I always saw it. It's like, how can you just do a little bit? As they say, like the crumbs make the cake. How can you just provide a crumb?
Yeah. How do you contribute? How do you make, And you're right. It takes a special person, a special mindset to kind of get up every day and be like, everything I did yesterday
doesn't matter.
Or it's going to be a little bit different today. And there's definitely the folks that are like, no, I need the same thing. I'm going to rinse and repeat each day. That's my safe space. That's what I want to do. I think you ask any security practitioner if, they would go crazy if everything every day was the same. They're like, no, the difference, the interacting with the new people, the different people, all of this, it's an inherent part of just being a security person. So you made me think of something else, again, CactusCon related. There was a presentation in the main con about I'm going to botch the guy called it the Gumby Project, I believe. And it was the concept. He told a great story about an elderly couple getting scammed out of like their life saving. But his mission at the end of it was like, set up a relationship with somebody that you are their safe person to basically ask that question when they're about to click or respond to something like that. And I thought it was a fantastic way to look at kind of our vulnerabilities as humans to one, want to maybe be helpful to a threat actor or fall for a scam of some kind. But then the idea of, and just the thing that got me there was, he's like, the moment you start explaining this situation out loud is typically the moment you realize it's a scam. So if you're just keeping to yourself, kind of going along, like following along, doing the things, it's probably going to proceed and you're going to get scammed out of your dollars or your whatever it is. But he's like, if, your brother comes over or somebody and is like, or your trusted person comes in and is like, hey, what are you doing? And you start explaining it. You're like, oh crap. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm being scammed. Like,
Yeah.
once, and there's probably some very smart psychological something that once you speak it out loud, you're hearing it differently and it makes more sense. But
Yeah.
but I think that's it, another great thing back to the network, back to the trusted circles and all of that stuff, to be able to say, this doesn't sound right. I need some help, or I just want to talk through this with somebody that I trust.
I think a part of it is like, as people or humans or whatever,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily view yourself in a negative light.
Yeah.
And it's almost like in your best interest to not admit that you could be stupid.
Yeah. Oh, I'm stupid.
Right. But like, think about it. Like if you were to do something stupid,
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways people can justify why. Emotionally, logically, maybe a mix of the two, like some sort of blend where you're like, yeah, it's kind of suspect, but still did it, and this is why.
Yeah.
Right?
You justify it, a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and you can just move on with your life.
Yeah.
Now, the minute you have to explain it to someone else that is affected by it, like your spouse.
Right. It's only 100,000, dear.
What the hell do you mean? You just clicked on that button because it said this. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, you're right. So I think a part of it too, like, and I'm no psychotherapist or psychologist or whatever way it could be, right? No psychopath. Is like, I think a lot of times people just justify the ends justify the means in their head. Like, oh, I can justify why, who, when, because. But the minute you have to speak it out loud, it brings into question like your mental fortitude. Like, are you dumb?
Yeah.
And I mean, are you stupid?
Yeah.
But like when you say something out loud, just like what is it? Einstein says, like, no, the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. Well, it's or not counter, but the other side of that is like, no one knows how stupid you are until you talk. Right. So it's like, you can justify it internally.
Right.
But the minute you speak it out loud, you're just like, oh shit, like, hey, yeah, that's pretty dumb.
Yep. It's powerful. It's being able to kind of use that tool. So
without realizing it.
Yeah.
It's like, so, and then how do security professionals do that? They got the circle.
Yeah.
They got the inner circle.
Yep.
Where it's like,
even your team, like, like if you have 3 people on your team or you have 30 people on your team, like just being able to, talk amongst the team to be like, hey, this incident is happening. I'm doing this. And, you've got different perspectives to be like, why are you doing that? Like,
yeah,
the real risk is over here. Or so it's very very much a collaborative process to make it all happen.
Everybody's got to work together, which is kind of like with this idea of like people asking questions and coming together.
Yeah.
One of the things that Jean and I talked about right before she left was she was saying how there's things that have happened in healthcare when she was in healthcare that translated into different industries.
Mm-hmm.
But in these meetings, it wasn't clear that the healthcare, I don't know the best way to put it because I'm not necessarily like a security person, but the way that people did it in one field, no one realized that it was transferable to another because they're in two separate worlds. Yeah. It's like executive versus sales. But if you have a question on how it works, you might have, what was it? We talked about when manufacturer reps change and go to the VAR side.
Right.
Like, why is that the worst case scenario for the incumbent VAR that has a relationship? Because it puts that relationship at risk, or the monetization of the relationship. I'm very robotic.
Important part. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So it's like, it kind of like, it puts it at risk. And then like, what are you supposed to do? But you would have never thought about that. Or maybe not that you wouldn't have, but like, it probably wasn't the first.
Yeah. It was definitely not the first thing that came.
The first thing that came to mind. So in a lot of ways, like is having these different, not necessarily silos, but different verticals, maybe is the word,
Perspectives.
and say, how can you bring these together?
Mm-hmm.
So it brings me to maybe like a, not necessarily a closing question. So here's something that I was thinking about, and maybe it's not necessarily like on the roadmap, but it might be, is if there was a way to share a conversation, like a candid conversation between you and not like us, but like you and another professional, or maybe say multiple people, where this idea of these different experiences collaboratively come together, where people could say, hey, like, it's like an open forum where people come in and they sit down and they say, hey, like, this is what I'm dealing with. And it becomes an open room for open table for other people to say, hey, like, this is what I think you should do. Right? Doing that would be easier. But do you think that there would be value in having that to where, say, it was recorded and it was shared amongst the professionals within the industry as a way for people to get insights from their peers through some sort of platform to where it's like you don't have to have your 12 sources, but it might just be like an hour recording where we'll just say Eccles, Manrod, Grimmelman, and Costello. People that you just name people I didn't know, right? They're all together and they're talking about different things that they're dealing with that they've seen. You can't make it, but you still listen and you say, oh, I could see how that would be useful.
Yeah.
Like, and it's more so community driven, but facilitated in a way of the stuff that I have. And it's like how not everyone can get together at the same time.
Right.
They can't all go to the same conference. They can't hang out. If they do go to the conference, they got to worry about the sales guy trying to hunt them down in the bathroom at the store.
Or they're just busy catching up with, it's a busy time. So yeah, I get what you're saying. So what is that format? So challenges, and just talk through it a little.
Yeah.
So time is always a challenge. Topic and interest is always a challenge. I mention that because, okay, if I've got 30-minute, 40-minute drive to work, great. Then I could have a 30-40-minute podcast or something that I could listen to and whatnot. Mm-hmm. If, for me personally, if the topic of the podcast is not of interest that day, kind of a skip, right? Where it's like, oh, they're talking about something I'm not interested in. And so it's like to be able to curate the content in a fashion of how is it referenceable when it's something I'm interested in. That same podcast episode 6 weeks from now might be very interesting because I'm thinking about something different. And the topics are hitting different. And so timing is a challenge because it's, the circle might have gotten together and talked about a topic that I have no interest in today. Mm-hmm. And so when it's served to me, I'm not necessarily ready to hear it. Or
you're part of the 96% not on the market.
Right. I'm not it. There you go. See, I wished I came up with that.
But you're right. Still can use it.
I could still use it at some point, right? And so it's like, I think of what maybe some other forums or folks have tried to curate. Like there's inner circle dinners, there's inner circle breakfasts, there's peer groups, and there's all of these different flavors of what people try to get you together and talk about and do. There's usually a vendor looming somewhere around it because it had to be paid for somehow, which is fine. You get it, like all of those things. But even still, you walk into one of those and it's like, oh, we're talking about this. Shoot, I'm not really interested in that. Or that's not hot for me right now. So I'll just kind of go through the motions and talk to some people. And then, so to your question of how do you curate that? How do you do it? I don't know, because one, good luck wrangling even 4 of those for a conversation, right? Like that's hard, but to put it in a format that is consumable, I don't know. I mean, it's almost like you got to have the LLM there that can translate it all and respond to a question in the context of your 4 trusted, people or something like that. But,
well, as far as format or content, like video is easily to massage into whatever you want.
Sure.
You just have to have the raw material, right? It's kind of like cooking. Like as long as you have the materials, you can make the food. You just have to have other things with it. So that's not necessarily the issue. I think it's more so like the vendor sponsor stuff typically is sponsored because there's something to sell. And ideally it's we fix that problem. So it's not necessarily that. I see it as a way to say, well, look, if I front the money for this, right? We can keep it vendor removed. And then it's just become it. So part of the reason why I like a podcast or a studio is I don't necessarily like how a lot of events are pay to play.
Right.
Like if you can't afford to go to, we'll say CactusCon, or you can't afford to go to RSA.
RSAs, yeah.
Right. If you can't afford, your company can't go afford, you essentially miss out on what is being discussed. And if the idea of security is sharing information freely to improve the posture of everyone involved, why is it being gated? Right. So in my opinion, like, and the reason why like I do a lot of the stuff that I do for free is that I kind of feel like in order to improve the overall posture of people is you have to share information freely. So like the podcast just goes on YouTube free. Anyone can get it, right? So if someone's going to an event, they need pictures, like I'll show up and I'll do it for free. As long as I have time to do it. Less likely to see me doing video for free because of all the effort that goes into it. But photos, boom, show up and take them, right?
Yeah.
My thought is like, if the idea is to improve how well people work or perform at protecting, who are we to hold that with the price, right? Because as a community, the idea is to make everyone better without any sort of expense. And I see how you can turn it into a business by gating it, but like, how come no one just does it for free?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in a spot where it's like, if I have everything that I need to do it, I could easily offer it for free and then subsidize it through, well, if you guys happen to need stuff and you buy it and you happen to buy it from me, well, great. You guys just pay for the next 4 quarters,
right?
Or the next monthly
like
thing.
X percentage goes to planting trees or
exactly. It's like, hey, hey, we support Fern, and because we support him, he supports us back. And there's no obligation in any way other than, he does it in, hopefully someone wants to buy some stuff or, just whatever it is. And to me, it's like you keep the vendors out because there's always, the every problem is a nail and they're always the hammer. Right or wrong, it exists and no one disagrees with that. Especially at companies that have a large portfolio. It's like, oh, we can do that. Oh, but yeah, but you're shitty at that. Like these guys are market leaders. You're not. Well, yeah, but we still offer it and it's free. Like Defender, right? Yeah. Like, okay. Let me get Defender. So I don't know. She said that and I started thinking and I texted a few people. I'm like, that's actually a pretty cool idea. But now I'm thinking like, well, how do you serve it up?
Yeah.
In a way that the only people that get access to it are verified like professionals.
Yeah.
And then also in a way that the people that are providing it, not necessarily not anonymous, but like a lot of stuff that Frank does, you have to be a member with it, but that's very like leading edge or bleeding edge, right? I can understand that, but I'm thinking more so just like lessons learned, things that you've seen, like the silent situation or the unnamed company, which we may have just named them, right? May have just named them. Like how do you save someone else from burning their hand on the stove?
Yeah.
And how do you facilitate it? Fine. Pay for it. Not hard to do. Record it. Okay. But now it's like, so I guess maybe the question that I'm getting to is like, you have 12 sources now. Would a peer group be a good 13th source for you?
Easy answer is yes. Figuring out the right format, the right consumable is the challenge. So you're on the right track, right? It's if you've curated a group of peers, maybe just a subset of those are those that I would consider inner circle or that I would take advice from. And these ones, nice to know you, but not
interested.
Not interested. You figure out the sauce to be able to say, you see it a little bit where you're like, hey, here's our list of experts. Who do you want to talk to? But like in the more of a fashion of, hey, Daniel, who on this list do you trust? Great. They've got this bit of information. So I don't know, like, can you tag your videos? Can you like
Yeah.
put the key words in there to be like, I need a silence story, or I need a whatever, or I'm getting ready to remove passwords, or so if somebody amongst your conversations, amongst your hangouts and your interviews and your talks has told a story about that, and they happen to hit my inner circle or a trusted person's inner circle. So it's like, you've got a couple of factors to be like, yeah, here's a story about that. It'd be pretty powerful.
Could be like a curated list essentially.
Yeah.
But it would be curated by professionals. So like most people spend $100,000 on Gartner.
Yeah.
Well, Gartner's basically going to tell you what Dan already knows.
Yeah.
Or Eccles already knows. Or some of these other things or people have already been through these things. So like, why pay $100,000 when Fern's just serving it up for free?
And to just maybe even to help you out, but like, why have to curate it all this way? There might be a way to inquire, like ask for participation, but to say, hey, Daniel, record a voice memo, or, respond with a voice memo of 2 minutes on your thoughts of this. And it just kind of goes into the repository, right? You're just like,
yeah, or like audience questions, fielded from an approved list.
Exactly. So it's like
a trusted list.
You could farm it out, right? You could, here's my question this week, and if everybody responds with a 1 minute audio recording of here's my thoughts on that question, you've now got 50 answers. And the interesting thing is, I'm only going to trust 5 of those 50. Like they might be the same as these other people, but I don't trust those people.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be like vendor specific. It would be like just people talking through their experience.
This is just me telling you a story, or like, hey, tell me a story. And you know what? I don't have a story about that. Sorry. Like, so you're, but you've got a big enough network. You've got a big enough source to
like submit the questions.
Yeah.
If you're part of the newsletter,
right.
Submit your question. We'll send it out, and whatever we get back. And it's just like, it's more so people helping other people.
Yeah.
And then it's just.
Yeah. And I think you see a lot of that curated a lot of different ways. You see like the word clouds. You see like, we like the CISO reports. Like, we talked to 500 CISOs, and, they think the biggest problem is this, and they think, and so it's like, but you never know who. You see the bubbled up list.
Yeah.
And you're like, everybody thinks this. And you're like, well, maybe the majority thinks that. Or
6 out of 7 dentists say you should use Colgate.
Yes. And you're like, I hate Colgate. Like that shit's nasty.
7th dentist wasn't even a person.
Yeah.
It was a dog.
Right.
Right.
So you've got you got an interesting opportunity there to kind of bring that together and make it a product almost, but like not a product, but like a
free thing.
Yeah.
Like a resource.
But a resource. That's a better word, is a resource.
Like, she said that, and then she said she'd get with me to maybe talk through some stuff. And I'm thinking like, that would actually be pretty cool, because most of the time information isn't free.
Yeah.
It is in some cases, like we'll say GPT, you got to pay $20 a month, but people trust people.
Yep.
People don't trust sales. People don't trust companies. They trust their peers.
They trust their people.
Yeah, exactly. They trust people, but it's their approved people.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I talk to enough people and I say, hey, we do this, it's a free resource. If you want to be a part of it, all we do is ask that you answer a few questions, like a year, like answer 1 a quarter.
Yeah.
So that way you're at least participating with your experience. And then it goes into this repository. It almost becomes like a playlist where it's like, here's the topic. Here's a hot topic, like 5 hot topics. And here's the responses from 50 people.
Yeah.
And then whoever is a professional could essentially say, oh, like I need to hear about that. Not today. After my next project, I'll go back.
But because it's kind of exciting to think about, because if you've just got somebody's 1 minute I don't know what the magic time is. I'm just like 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minutes. But if it's like, this is what I do today naturally.
Mhm.
Call up Mike, Eccles, Manrod, whoever, and be like, I'm thinking about this, or I need to do something different here. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
They'll rant for 2 minutes. They'll give me their thoughts. And then that's just for me. And
Yeah.
I've locked it in, and they've helped me make a decision. And I'm like, okay, I've got some thoughts now. Maybe it wasn't the answer I needed or was looking for, but I've at least got another trusted point of reference. And that's where
And it's not potentially skewed by someone's motivations.
right. Or a vendor sitting in the room, or it's just, what do you think about this right now?
Hard facts.
Hard facts. Just like, yeah, no, we put in that firewall. It was amazing. And the only downside was we needed 10 people to support it. You're just like, okay, now I've got some data and some metrics, and I can either move on to something else or that's aligned with what I have. So let's go do that.
Well, sounds like
That's a fascinating, interesting idea.
Yeah. So I don't know what it'd be called, but to me, she said that and I was like, you're right, because everyone's so busy. How does anyone have time to meet up? Like you said, James, you met him once, right?
I think I've seen him twice in the last, 12 years. Like, but it's like one of those things where it's just like, once it happens, it's magical. Like you hear the stories, you trust the perspective. You have all of this going on. So,
but imagine if you could get that whenever you wanted.
Yeah.
Like if you had not necessarily you, but like if other people had questions and someone just jumped in and said, hey, like, here's my take.
Yeah.
It's honest, it's raw, it's unfiltered, and it's unbiased.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be biased, but like, we're just going to discount that and say it's not, because it's an experience I would argue you can't say someone's experience is biased. It might feel a certain way to them based on context, but it is their opinion, and it's
their opinion. It's skewed to the industries and situations that they've worked in. So but I think that's what you get by asking somebody. Like, I know every place that Manrod worked. I know the positions that he's had. I know his experience. So I know those things. So I know where his point of view is coming from.
Yeah.
Some guy or girl over here that I don't know those about, that's giving me opinion. I'll be like, well, great. Like,
yeah.
What makes you an expert? Like,
yeah. It's almost like a Google, but of people, but trusted people, because you don't necessarily know the source of a lot of these places.
Mm-hmm.
All you know is like the finished product, like the PowerPoint that costs you $100,000 to get, right? Or we'll say 60. We'll give them 60 to 100, right?
You negotiated well.
So it's an interesting topic, and she mentioned that, and I never thought about it, but it's like, I guess I have the raw materials to facilitate it. I think I've met enough people where it's like, yeah, that'd be useful, but that's as far as I've taken her. So I figured I'd just ask you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like thinking about those kind of things. I feel bad because I have no capability of making any of it happen or coming up with any of it.
No, I think it's, so there's this idea of product market fit. You could make a really good product that no one cares to buy.
Yeah.
Or you can have a really easy product that no one realized that they needed.
Right.
So it's like, do you go down the route of trying to do something and realize that no one wants it?
Yeah.
Or do you ask questions and gauge, well, yeah, that could be interesting and I could see myself using it. And if you get enough of that, then it turns into, well, here's a MVP of what it looks like.
Right.
And then from there, if you build it, great. If not, whatever. But at least you did the research, That's kind of how I see it. Is like, so I'll ask a few people.
Yeah.
I figured I'd ask you since it's almost.
I love it. I'm thinking about it more. And just like the number of times that I've reached out and like, oh, we want to know this. I'm like, well, I'll ask. And but it's like,
you got to go through
the motions. Yeah. And not that I don't enjoy talking to the people, but that's a good couple of hours where you're just like, I'm going to ask 3 or 4 people. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
You've got other stuff to talk about and all of these things. It's not polite to call up and say, tell me about this. Okay, click.
So you got to do that. Hey, how's it been?
Yeah.
How are the fans?
Like, what have you been up to? Like,
yeah.
all worthwhile, good conversation.
But they know the question's coming.
Like, no, it's coming.
What does he want? What does he want?
Yeah.
I get those texts every now and then. It's like, hey man, like how's everything going? And like, all right.
Yeah. Well, I haven't talked to you in 9 months. What do you need?
Where's the question at? Where's it at? Or where's the ask? And
I usually get those from me. I'm gonna be like, oh, talking to this guy.
You could call me if you want. You know, it only took a year for you to show up,
Yeah.
or less. I would say 6 months, but I'm glad you came.
Me too.
I'm happy you showed up because we finally got to chat early on. Talked about maybe stuff that I'm maybe more passionate about.
I liked hearing about it.
But at the end of the day, we got to the good stuff. And we got to some of the stories. We got to some of the stuff where I feel like I've grown as a person, where I've kind of gone outside of my comfort zone to kind of meet people. And now it's like, if someone's like, hey, we're going to sit you in a room with a complete stranger, I'm like, bring it.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is. Yeah. Can I bring my camera for 3?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I don't think I would have done that before. And if anything, it helps me, you know, feel more, we'll say more confident. And not that I can teach someone about security or IT, but maybe I can give them perspective into something that they hadn't, that I know that they don't understand.
Yeah. You can give them some great perspective and you can give them some great resources now. You're like, well, talk to my friend over here.
Yeah. That's the
They
thing
know
is
about
like,
this.
I can now, so like even like a funny story, there was that event recently. I was talking to the guy at the showroom, the guy that runs it, and he was like having trouble getting some of the last slots filled. And he's like, hey, like,
Yeah,
who do you know? And I'm like, have you called Lester? And he's like, oh, you know, yeah, we're working on that one.
Right.
Ping Lester. He's like, yeah, sign me up. Right. Manrod. Like, Manrod, check your email. I was like, oh, sorry, I missed it.
Yeah.
And it's like 130,000 emails in his inbox. And I text him and he's like, yeah, I'll find it. And then he responds and throws me on there.
Mm-hmm.
And, all right, cool.
Yep.
And then there was a handful of other people where they're like, hey, like, you know, we're working on this. You happen to know? And I'm like, yeah, let me just call the homies real quick.
It's so true. It's so powerful. I didn't even think about it, but like, yeah, events, like I don't go to a lot, but the ones that I do, it's because somebody said, hey, I'm going to go to that. Or, hey, I went to this. It's good. So it's that same thing. It's a free event. It's just a little bit of time, a little bit of drive, maybe a little more for me, but
for sure. They're usually not out this way, but if you do go, I think they're worth it. It's just, you know, when it comes to getting on the panels for those, I mean, people are busy, but I've kind of weirdly become like a connector.
roll with it.
So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Echo said he's coming here on the 10th. He texted me. He's like, hey, I'm going to be out that way. Cause Damien,
Yeah.
going to be out there he's out there right now. Maybe do some dinner, but then Eccles is, you know, traveling. So, couldn't make it happen, but he'll be out here. And then I will warn you, I will do something soon for the first 20 guests. So.
Did I make the first 20?
You did. I think you're at 18 or 17. I had
Nice.
to
That's
check.
a great number.
I think you're either 17 or 18.
Okay.
And so when I get to 20, which should be soon, I think we've got 2 more slots to fill. There's Gene, you, and there's Roberto from City of Scottsdale. He's coming in this weekend.
Cool.
I think there's a couple more spots. So if you know anyone that you think would have as much fun as you did, be willing to drive as far as you did for a conversation that they have no idea when it's going to be. But
how is this so hard to sell?
I don't know, but you've been here for almost 4. You've been here like 4 or 5 hours.
That's incredible. Time has flown by.
You've been here for 4 hours. We started. You got here at 2. It's almost 7:30. So you've been here for a while. It doesn't feel like it, but my biggest issue is somehow getting people to show up because they're like, "Oh, who the hell is this guy?"
Mm-hmm.
So if you have more people that you say, "Hey, I think you should talk to James," like Eccles text James and myself, I just never heard back.
Okay.
So that's one where I'm like, it's probably not going to happen. Like I messaged David.
Valenzuela?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Former SRP.
Yeah. No?
I met him at CactusCon. I said hi, told him kind of like what I'm doing. And he's like, cool, I got to run. He's like, okay, cool.
That's a no.
Yeah. Well, no, he had an issue at work or something. He was dealing with something or someone. So we got to run. And I was like, hey, man, like, I'm looking for people. If you're interested, cool.
Yeah.
Right. So bottom line is, I think there's at least 2 more spots.
Okay.
And it'll either be a happy hour or it'll be a dinner where everyone that's been on from 1 to 20, we're just going to go somewhere and just hang out
Cool.
and do like a dinner.
Yeah.
So I told Echoes it's probably be in April, maybe
You're
May.
going to give him a number even though he's not going to let you publish it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't.
Yeah, no. I think you're right.
I've hung out.
Right, Tom.
He's been one of the people that's really helped me with. Granted, some people don't show up or some people don't respond, but he's always like, "Hey, Fern's my guy.
Yeah. He's a good advocate.
You should show up. Like I'm telling you." And they're like, "Well, where's your episode?" And he's like, "Well, you know how it is." So, he's done his best to kind of help. I think you were one of the people on the list, right? But it took a little massaging from other people. So if you have others that are part of like the circle, the SRP club, just imagine you're there hanging out with me and all your other homies from back in the day.
I'll
that.
I'll make a couple intros.
So
I got some ideas.
okay. And then keep in mind the other stuff that I talked about, like anything comes to mind where like, hey, like I was thinking about it, this would be pretty cool. I could use that because still early stages, but I think once I start doing more work related videos, I'll have more of an appetite to just go after these other things as like a way to kind of just build community around it. But we'll say this. When Paul left, he gave us parting words.
Yeah.
So
I heard about this. I have not heard it actually.
Oh, I'll send you the link for it.
Okay.
It's a clip I made.
Okay.
So we're going to ask you for your parting words. Feedback, anything you'd say to future guests, or just, you could just close it out and say, hey, this was whatever. Fern has bourbon. I'm going to take a shot. My iced out or icy or water.
That ice watered down. So
with double cherries.
This is great. I think it's a to your future guests. This is a comfortable, just laid back opportunity to think through some things that I haven't thought of in a long time. So if they are not like me, they will hear this and come a little prepared to be able to do these things. Feedback. I love your passion. I love what you got going on here. I'm very excited that I, am here. So I think this is cool. I will come back. If we want to do round 2 with questions or just as that matures out, count me in.
Okay.
I will sit down and you can rapid fire questions and I will give you blurbs for new questions, like all of these things. Like that sounds like a fantastic thing. I spaced on the last thing that you wanted to talk about, but I'll close it out with this. My thoughts and advice that I give to anybody that'll listen. Don't forget the basics. I loved that. I think it was Rich that you mentioned. He's like, it's always about the people. It's always been about the people.
That's his book.
I couldn't agree more. They're a fundamental piece of everything we do, whether they're a customer, a team member, an employee of your company, or a vendor or a partner. It's critical to having those relationships and make that all happen. And don't forget the basics. That's ultimately what it's all about. So people are part of that.
Stick with the basics. What do they say? Keep it simple, stupid.
There you go. Keep it simple.
Or do they say keep it something
like that? It's too late to
keep it simple. It's almost 8 o'clock at night, and I've got dinner to go home and cook.
Yeah, you got to get to the camp.
So with that, I don't even know how we end these.
Thank you, Fern. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
this very much.
We're out.
Had a great time.